Hello, listening people.
Hello, listening people.
I'm Ryan.
I'm Bartek.
And you're listening to Spin Polish Presents Unappreciated Masterpieces. Bartek, why are we called Spin Polish?
Because we're always Polish and we're both spitting.
Yes, or we're always spitting and we both happen to be Polish, isn't that right?
That's right.
What is it, Bartek, that we do here on Unappreciated Masterpieces?
On Unappreciated Masterpieces.
On what?
On Unappreciated Masterpieces.
Is that Polish?
Yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah.
We find the classics, but not the classics that are classic, the classics that are forgotten, unappreciated, not seen, not talked about, you know, the elephants in the room, perhaps. The ones that didn't get the credit they deserved and still don't have it, the ones that had it at one point and don't. That's why we did movies like Everything.
Like all of them.
Bennett like Beckham, I was saying, but I forgot the title. That's how professional we are on the masterpieces.
Don't blame me in your unprofessionality. Jeez.
Sorry, you're wearing a suit, I'm not. And we find them, we talk about them, we talk about why they are the greatest movies that are ever made, and why, this is more the theory side, why we think that they are unappreciated.
Yes, that's right. So what is... Oh, sorry, that was a terrible cough. What is the great cinematic classic, the unappreciated masterpiece that we are going to explore today?
Well, Ryan, today we are doing Rok Pierwszy.
Look, I don't know what that means. You know, we've been doing this for, what, like 25 episodes or more? I don't know. I don't speak Polish. You were just doing this to embarrass me in front of everyone involved. I don't know. What are we watching, Bartek?
Well, first of all, are you embarrassed?
Obviously.
Good.
I said that.
Rok Pierwszy is Year One, starring Jack Black and Michael Cera.
Cera or Sarah? I don't know.
I think it's actually Sarah.
That's one of the many questions I have in my notes. So, Year One, the 2009 classic film Year One. But Bartek, we don't always do this alone now, do we?
No, I've only done it alone twice.
Every now and then we do it alone, but usually we need a guest, a brave soul, a soldier of fortune to help us analyze, break down, and discuss this kind of film. And who is our guest, Bartek?
Ryan, I'm glad you asked. Our guest today is very, very cool. It's Lliam Amor.
That's a terrible introduction.
Okay, I'll give you...
It is a bit cold in here, I must say that.
I will give you a great introduction. Lliam Amor is our biggest guest, and I don't mean like
What
just...
the hell, guys? Are you trying to insult me?
I don't mean it like just physical size. I mean as in stature of career. You're the one who's actually got a career of some sort in acting and in films. You're actually our guest that can give us an idea of how the behind-the-scenes process works. Lliam, of course, has been, you know, in a few things that you may know, such as Lliam has, of course, been in Neighbours. Who could forget? He was also in the television movie Hawk as Robert Ray. Who could forget that? Of course, Lliam only chooses the top-class stuff like Blue Heelers.
Only, yeah. Top shelf TV.
Top shelf. And my personal favourite, Bartek, you okay?
I'm having a good time.
Liam's career isn't funny, okay? I mean, he's a funny guy, but it's not funny stuff being
So far, it's hilarious. Keep going, yeah.
And whatever happened to that guy has Jamie in the episode, the classic Fat Pig.
The Fat Pig episode.
What was that episode about?
Great little bit of improvisation in there.
What was that episode about?
It was
because I looked up the show and it sounded actually interesting. Like it got like a high rating, and I was just like, I don't remember this show. It got like an 8.2 or 3 on IMDb.
I think you guys should definitely do it on this podcast.
Whatever happened to that guy?
If you branch into TV, you know.
Whatever. Yeah. Unappreciated TV shows. Yeah. So what happened in Fat Pig?
Fat Pig was the name of a restaurant that Peter Moon had opened up. And he in a brilliant little bit of improvisation, looked me up and down and then suggested that I would enjoy eating there. I think it was a fine bit of Australian comedy right there.
Yes, and we're going to do a fine bit of comedy today with Year One.
Wow, I thought this was a serious intellectual podcast in which we mined cinematic history for material.
Well, this is cinematic history, and it's a comedic piece of cinematic history. This is no Schindler's List, of course, but it is an equivalent in the world of comedy.
if you'd listened to this podcast, you'd already know that we discovered the exact point in history where sexism ended forever.
And that was, of course, with the film Sorority Boys. So this is 2009, one of our more recent films. So we are going to get this started, of course. Before we do we have a personal history with this movie?
Oh yes, I saw this movie in the cinema.
What a great choice.
Yes.
Was it great? Do you remember your experience with it vividly?
No, this was a case where I remember enjoying the movie a lot, but as the years go by, and it's been 7 years,
Wow.
very little bits of it stuck. Like, I remembered it was very early in history, and it had, like, a bunch of biblical characters from the Old Testament, and yet it had a lot of New Testament stuff, like the Romans and stuff. Like, well, obviously
Were they?
started
We'll
earlier,
get
but-
there. We'll get to the Romans.
Yes.
So my history with this, Lliam, is I rented it from Video Easy under the assumption that it would be the best film ever because it had everyone that was funny in it at the time. Like, you know, Paul Rudd was just kind of emerging. I knew he was in it, and it had like Tobias from Arrested Development, and it had, you know, Jack Black, and it had Michael Cera, and I'm like, oh, this is gonna be great. And I watched it, and you know what, guys? I'll admit, the first time I watched it, did not like it. And it's one of those films that kind of stuck.
What?
Yeah, oh, yeah. I didn't like it the first time around. It stuck with me, being like, why didn't I like that movie? Why? And then I watched it again and again and again, and I just realized I was just too young.
You can fully appreciate
Yeah.
the level of maturity. That is a comedy.
It was way too high, brow. What about you,
Primo.
Lliam? Do you have a personal
Well,
attachment?
2009 was so long ago.
What? Don't say that. We're so young.
I think I might have been in the same Video Easy actually, and I think I borrowed it. Yeah, with the same idea of looking at the cast and the director and thinking, well, this must be this must be like Hollywood gold.
Yeah,
right
exactly.
Here, you know? And well, I think I was slightly disappointed. Yeah, but you're right. On reflection, it really is. I think I've grown too.
Yeah. We've both grown.
Yeah.
Bartek stayed the same.
Yeah.
I just had to remind myself. Basically.
No character development for
he's
Bartek.
He's stunted.
So we're going to start this master affair we're going to start it, so get your copy ready, guys, because I imagine all people of a sane variety have their copy of Year One readily available to watch at any time. So I'm going to press
$6 from the last available Video Easy in the world.
Yeah, right. So I'm going to try and start this in 3, 2, 1. Will my DVD work? Bartek, the DVD. There we go. 3, 2, 1, play. So we now got it happening. We're looking at the lovely lady herself. Is she a real person? Like they modeled her on someone real?
Yes.
You've been around for Columbia.
Rita Hayworth.
Oh, Rita, of course. I should have known, but at the same time, I was too busy watching Year One to study the history of Colombian pictures.
Oh, I thought it was Mrs. Columbia from the swimsuit competitions.
The swimsuit competitions?
Can I just say, look at that font choice already. We're already off to a winning start.
Well, it gives you the feel of an ancient time.
It does. It's almost papyrus,
Almost?
but not. You know.
Almost, I would say. So, Bartek,
Yes.
you have no recollection of seeing this classic in the cinema.
I have very little recollection, yes.
Jeez, how could you? I mean, if I saw this, I would never forget. It would be an experience that I would never, ever, ever forget.
Believe me, I've never forgotten that I've seen it.
Oh. So, the cast is quite impressive, wouldn't you
It's
say?
incredible.
It's an incredible cast, and I'll be honest, a lot of these people have, bloomed as actors since this movie. There's a lot of unknowns at the time, and now they're...
Like Hank Azaria.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't know him. No, I was going to say, I don't know, Olivia Wilde, she's pretty big now, but I don't think she was really anyone in 2009. Am I right?
She was only a year away from being voted sexiest vegetarian of the year by PETA. Yeah.
Well, there you go. And there's other people like Juno Temple. She's like, Jack Black's sister that he refuses to talk to at any point in this movie and care about. She's in quite a bit now as well. So, this film, and of course, I think he's an underrated actor, but Vinnie Jones is in this movie too. Vinnie Jones, most underrated actor?
I think his best work is done when he doesn't speak.
No, you're wrong. Have you not seen?
How dare you?
Have you not seen Year One? I mean, jeez.
Sorry, you're right. Absolutely right. I'm sorry.
And you know,
what lines of dialogue he gets given, but that's later on, isn't it?
Well, yeah. Of course, I remember he was, you know, you want a kiss? Who could forget that classic where he demanded that Michael Cera kiss him? So, when you guys watched this, getting prepared for this, how long would you say it had been since you had watched this film last? Like, how fresh was it in your brain?
I have not, honestly, have not thought about it since 2009.
Okay, what about you, Bartek? Have you seen it since, like, your theatre experience?
No, literally the theatre was the first and last time I'd seen it before yesterday.
Well, I saw it last summer when I was back home for Christmas. It was on TV, and I was just like, well, you know...
How bored were you?
It was a Sunday night. I mean, come on, nothing else to do. It's God's day off. And, you know, I was like, come on, let's watch this movie. And what a blast it really is. So, having had to watch it again, guys... You know, Bartek having forgotten most of it, Lliam not really wanting to remember it since 2009. Did it come back to you, like these moments, like flashbacks of you remembering it for the first time?
Yes, but only the start, the caveman
Me
part.
too, actually.
Yeah. And then after that, it just was a blur of clearly I was laughing so hard, I couldn't remember any of it.
Yeah, I think so too. Like, I remember when I was watching this scene here, I was like, oh yeah, wasn't Michael Cera's character a gatherer? And yes, he was. Yeah. And then there was the part where he gets the forbidden fruit. I'm like, I remember this scene.
I remembered this first half also, but the only thing I remember the second half was the very gay high priest, and that was
Oliver Platt. Yeah.
Oliver Platt, who he's someone, I will be honest, that I didn't really notice him as an actor until I watched the TV show Fargo, in which he was in it. And then I'm like, I've seen this guy in everything actually.
He's actually a really good actor.
Oh, he is. He is, definitely.
Of course he is, because he's in this. But
he's great in this.
What I mean is...
best part.
There's a scene... There's a moment coming up which I think really... This film, if anything, can put a stamp on history and just say, let's just put feminism back about 60 years.
Well, no, in all fairness, this is during prehistoric times, so feminism is not what we understand it today.
No, but it was made in 2009.
Yeah, but this film is a historical piece. It's set,
it is true. Yeah, absolutely.
It's setting itself in year one. Can I just, really jump on this?
Yes.
I was watching this with my household last night, so my girlfriend...
There it is.
Yep. Armpit hair. Ooh.
Yeah.
Yum.
Hilarious. She doesn't have hair on any other part of her body apart from her head.
Well, we didn't get to see much else of her, so, we don't know yet. But
was that Kenny Baker then?
I don't know. I hope so. Yeah. You could only hope. I mean, Bill Hader's in this movie too.
Is he?
He's the witch doctor.
Yeah, but is he? Like, who knows?
Who knows?
There's so much makeup there. so many bad choices.
One of the questions we had a debate about in my household was the title, Year One. Why is it called Year One? What's your understanding? What's your interpretation of it being, why is it called Year One? Why?
Well, I think perhaps it's a play on audience expectations. If you had not seen the trailer, you would come into this thinking, oh, this is the first year ever. This is like pre
yeah, you thought that you would think they're like prehistoric cavemen, and this is their first year.
God just made the world, or whatever your
and Jack Black's like the first man, all that kind of stuff. What about you, Lliam? What was your interpretation of the title Year One?
I think it's obviously a lovely homage to the two characters' names, Z and O.
Yeah.
Which of course makes zero, and and they're just bringing it always coming back to zero. I think this whole film just comes back to zero.
It comes back.
All the time. It just flattens out to zero.
Talking about, coming back to things, we're mentioning her obvious phallic symbolism there, which the film thought we needed to be understood more by having her do it with two as well. My understanding was, there was a big debate. People were like, okay, so it's Year One as in what? Is it Year One?
That's a great cameo, by the way. Look at that. The guy taking a shit behind Jack Black's
that could have been you, Lliam.
I love that. That's one of the best gags in the film, I reckon.
No, I'm going to tell you what the best gag when it comes up. And if you dispute me, I'm going to just cry with anger. But one of my interpretations was, is this Year One, like, as in, like, because I knew it was biblical. I'm like, is it BC or AD? What is it? And then I remembered it's Old Testament, so I'm like, oh, BC then. And then it's clearly not. And then it's like, Is it year one of man? No. And then I had an epiphany of maybe it's year one of their experience outside of the village. Like year one of them outside of their zone of comfort, outside of home. Because you could easily get a sequel out of this. Like, if it did much better than it did, it's set up for a sequel. Jack Black was going to...
You go all the way up to...
Year 4.
Yeah, at least.
The intelligence of the comedy would be year 4 level, you know? Like, geez.
Or the sequels could be the rest of the year.
Oh.
Because what? They're only a week.
And they do a prequel. Is this called like 8 months? And
What do you think those apples are made of?
Are we talking about from the world of the film or production?
In the production.
I think they're like
Look at that.
green apples, and they've used like a CGI effect. So
That's a great use of budget there, isn't it? I mean, it really is. Look at that.
Last film we did, guess who? They spent $100,000 on special effects to digitally edit out Ashton Kutcher's wristband. Now that's how you spend a budget.
That's worth it.
Now this film, obviously, it has a high production value.
Is that a Granny Smith? What is that?
I don't know. I'm not a real Apple expert. Bartek, you're an Apple expert. Is it a Granny Smith?
What was on the Tree of Knowledge?
I don't know. Like, it's hard to say, but there was yellow snakes for sure.
Maybe that questions the point of this scene.
What
was on the Tree of Knowledge?
And did it make Jack Black smart? Like, that's the thing. Like, is it an actual, like, magical tree? I don't understand.
Is that supposed to be Satan, by the way?
The snake or Jack Black?
No, yeah. No, the snake. You eat it, you eat the apple, the snake appears, and then the gag is finished and they just cut away to something else.
Yeah, they don't explain how he got out of that.
Yeah.
It's a very funny interpretation of the story of Adam and Eve, because the snake appears before the apple in that one, but in this one they're like, we're doing things differently, much like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid in terms of a western.
Sure.
We're gonna have the apple be eaten first and then have the snake.
And then have Adam later.
Yes. And if you really like that scene, you can stay in the credits and there's a scene where he fights the
Fights the snake, yeah.
Why was that not shown? I will be honest. So, this film deals with a lot of issues, but you know what's something I really got about this? This was in 2009, and you made a comment, Lliam, before that was so long ago.
So long ago.
It really doesn't feel that long ago.
Not that long ago.
But this film really reminds you what 2009 films were like. You know, we've done a lot of movies now where we've done early to mid 2000s, and they have a real visual striking look and a directing style and a comedy style. But I did not know that 2009's comedy stylings and filmmaking like this, for instance, is so different to what we have now. It's kind of interesting.
What other great comedy films came out in 2009?
Let's see. It was a year after Meet Dave, I believe.
Yeah, like classic Meet Dave.
Okay.
When did The Hangover come out?
Way after that.
2000.
No, I'm pretty sure Hangover was 2008 or 9.
I'll do a quick check.
I mean, the third one came out in like 2013 or 14, so think about the films.
It was 8 or 9, I'm dead sure.
Lliam may be wrong about this, and he's a colossus of film, so who knows? He may be right or wrong. We'll
Again with the weight jokes, come on, man.
No, I'm saying that you're like our hero.
Look at that. Isn't she great? What a great actress.
Yeah.
Juno Temple, daughter of Julian Temple.
I thought you were talking about Michael Cera.
Juno Temple. Again, she's someone that I only kind of discovered in like a film at recent, which was Horns with Daniel Radcliffe, in which one day he wakes up and has horns, and that's how you make a movie. But
so this film came out at around the same time as The 40-Year-Old Virgin.
Really?
Also a Judd Apatow, clearly. Judd Apatow produced this film and that. Borat came out.
Oh yeah,
Step Brothers. Yeah. Hangover, you're right. You're absolutely
Thank
right.
you. I think an apology is owed.
I
Sorry,
won't give it
Ryan.
to you.
He says.
I won't give it to you.
So
Me, Myself, and Irene came out that same year as well.
really?
And School of Rock, big year for Jack Black.
No, School of Rock was like 2005, Lliam.
Borat was 2006.
Well,
Are you looking at lists?
The internet is wrong.
He's just looking at lists of comedies and just assuming they all came. What a great year was for Jack Black. Jack Black must have in that year alone did
Look at that
School of
flip.
Rock and Nacho Libre at year one. It was a stellar year.
Big year. Big year.
And that was
Year
the
one of his career, really.
Yeah.
And that was the year Michael Cera did The Graduate too.
I would watch that.
Now, who is that? Who is that as the...
We already said who it was.
No, but is it? You can't tell.
It really is, because you could tell by the voice. Yeah.
In the bloopers you can, yeah.
No, but in this, I told by his voice because Bill Hader every now and then does like to do this kind of voice where he's just like, yeah, I'm so matter of fact. I'm Bill Hader. You get it? I'm speaking in an ironic way, but I'm telling the truth about everything. You know, that's the joke.
I just imagine Harold Ramis going up to him going, listen, Bill, what we're going to do is, it's a caveman tribe. We're going to dress you up. Sounds great. I'm going to get some hair and some wig. Fantastic. And we're going to put you in blackface. How do you feel about that for comedy purposes?
Good. I imagine. You know, I mean, if
will people be able to tell who I am? No, they will not be able to tell who you are.
Oh, well, I don't want to. That's good. I don't want to be remembered for this film.
Yes,
it's a skeleton twins.
It's a strand of blackface with red, yellow.
Hey, I mean, remember this period of time during the 5 years of 2009 onwards. You know, I would say blackface was acceptable because Robert Downey Jr. got Oscar nominated.
Cannot say that.
Remember, you got Oscar nominated for freaking Tropic Thunder.
Sure.
So that's what the Academy said. That's okay then.
But there was context.
There's context here. He's a witch doctor.
It's year one, guys.
Yeah, it's true. That's true.
He's a witch doctor.
And that is the beauty of this film, in that you can get away with anything.
Because it's year one. There was no PC culture back here.
Sure.
So here's something I'll ask you. Do you guys like Jack Black? In general, are you a Jack Black fan? Do you appreciate his catalogue of work? Do you think he's a good actor?
I'm going to say I'm a fair weather Jack Black fan. Mm-hmm. I go up and down depending on the role.
Yeah, I agree. What about you, Bartek? Because Bartek has been told by the kids that he looks like Jack Black.
Sometimes, yeah.
Those fucking kids.
So, what about you? You a fan of old Jack?
Well, growing up, I certainly remember whenever a movie was advertised as having Jack Black in it, that was always, a good thing in my book, because I remember, I think my first experience of him was School of Rock, and that's a classic, definitely appreciated. So whenever I saw a movie that had him in it, I was like, oh yes, this will be fun. These days, you don't really see him in too many things, so
he's very choosy with his roles.
He's done the Steve Martin thing of of doing some really good early stuff and then just taking a little bit of the old easy road, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, for another actor to say that about another actor is a terrible thing. But that idea
You've
of
been schooled by Lliam.
You kind of just see him sort of go, yeah, I'll take that money. Thank you very much.
Jack Black.
He was looking at me, saw Jack Black, and he just gave the criticism.
Yeah.
Jack Black is very a hard thing to pick down because you got to commend him on his energy, but at the same time, when that energy is just not focused, it's the most annoying thing in the universe. It is like this. You know how you have insane children that are not your children, and they just come up and try to entertain you, and you're like, "Get away from me." That's kind of like
the slap.
That's
you're saying the slap is about Jack Black.
Jack Black is the slap. Yeah,
the Black.
No, good one. But Jack Black, my first introduction, because my parents just kind of were those parents that kind of let me watch any kind of movie, was what's that one? Orange County? Or whatever. It's just like he's
Orange County, yeah.
Yeah, that movie or something like that.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
He was in that randomly. I'm like, oh yeah, I know this.
I like his early work.
I like
Bob Roberts.
High Fidelity.
Yeah, what was that?
No, Jack Black, I actually do.
Mars Attacks. That was.
Oh my god, I loved him in Mars Attacks. What I'm saying is, I like Jack Black. I do like him. He chooses wrong roles sometimes. You know, Nacho Libre was one I hate with a passion. I hate Nacho Libre so much because you saw him in School of Rock and then he followed it up with that. Jack Black, I think it does the up and down choices where he goes, I'll do School of Rock, then Nacho Libre, and then Year One, and then on and on it goes.
But you could see the thinking behind Nacho Libre. It was like the runaway hit of Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah.
Same director, same idea. Oh, by the way, look at this. I love the fact that there's a North American cougar somewhere near Egypt.
Well, we don't know how far they walked.
Or the Middle East, or wherever
we don't know how far they walked.
That's a long
walk
trip. Yeah.
No, Jack Black, one of my favorite Jack Black things is when he does it too, when comedic actors do serious roles and they actually do them pretty well. But I like Jack Black when he does a serious role, he still doesn't stretch far from being Jack Black. Like my favorite Jack Black performance is him as Bernie in the film Bernie, where it's like a true story film, and I'm just like, oh look, Jack Black can act. And then you watch Year One and you're like, Jack Black can tell jokes.
Just to interrupt for a second, Ryan, sorry. The idea that this film you know, Michael Cera's character just gets attacked by animals, and then all they do is cut away.
Yeah,
And
you're like, is he dead?
Never explained how he gets out.
Oh,
of
yeah,
it.
the credits don't have a cougar scene.
There's just no cougar scene. No, it's just got attacked again.
See, this is the kind of film. The good thing about this movie is, we haven't talked enough about the positives. The good thing about this movie is it does have surrealist humor. It has all the types of humor that you need. It covers all the spectrums, from silly humor to gross humor to physical humor to surreal humor. And this is kind of movie where if that cougar attacks Michael Cera and there's no explanation other than just a quick gag about how he has deep wounds, you have to accept that. You know, and I would. This is the kind of movie if they were just like, oh yeah, here's a cougar, and then they just, you know, and then they just show the cougar, and it's just like some old woman in a tree, and jumps at him. I wouldn't question it in this kind of movie. I love these kind of movies because
it's definitely on the spectrum. You're right.
They're movies where you don't question anything. You shouldn't need to question anything. But that's why we're here. We're gonna question it because Harold Ramis, you know, he made this.
Where is that, by the way? Where do you think?
Obviously,
it's Canada, isn't it? It's got to be
Canada. No, it's
The
obviously
Rockies.
Egypt,
Well,
where it's nice and green.
Well, it's year one, so it's probably, you know, Pangea or whatever.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, but it's not at the same time. So, yeah, this movie has a lot going for it. It is that kind of comedy where there are no rules. And sometimes comedies where there are no rules kind of fail, like the scary movies. They started out with comedy had no rules, and then it kind of flip-flopped and failed. And this is the kind of movie where I think it really succeeds. Like Jack Black here, we're not even 20 minutes in, and he's about to eat poop. I mean,
Yeah.
and it's green too.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I know.
what was that? He's like, it's apple.
It's clearly not the golden apple that Jack Black was eating earlier.
Wouldn't it be funny if it was his own poop? And he's like, no, that's fine. He says,
He just took it too far.
No, Jack like licking it and now chewing into it. No. I accidentally watched the unrated version of this movie, and I don't know what the differences between that and this movie are, so we'll find out.
Yeah, I don't actually know whether my DVD copy here is unrated or not.
Well, it's an underrated classic, that's for sure.
The Witch Doctor said fuck, so I don't know.
Yeah, so mine also said The Witch Doctor said fuck, and I was a bit surprised that this movie actually did have fuck in there. It was a bit of a surprise. It was kind of like, you know, sometimes when you drop the F-bomb in a comedy movie, it can really make or break the joke. Isn't that right? Like, don't you think? Because it's just like, if you haven't pre-established that this world is a world where you have characters or situations that can involve vulgarity of words like that, it really can be jarring. But this film, you know, they did it once, and boy, did they use it.
I don't know if you saw that, but the cow's legs were tied together when he jumped on it. I don't know if you could see that.
That was obviously the choice of Kane. He's a very logical guy.
Did you tie the cows up? When was I supposed to do that?
So here we have one of the first very many cameos of actors who are bigger than this project, really. And of course I'm talking about David Cross.
And Ant-Man himself.
You know, Paul
Would
Rudd.
you call him cameo?
Oh, what? Paul Rudd?
No, David
Kane.
Cross.
No. He's like the antagonist, really.
Yeah, well, he's a recurring flip-floppy.
He's the antagonist. He gets the sacrifice.
He gets more than once. He gets more than one timeline, and I think that he gets to that puts him up a notch. You know?
Yeah, it's true. And Paul Rudd, Ant-Man, like we mentioned, is in this movie. A lot of people. Who was the one actor or actress that appeared in this movie that you didn't expect to be in here? Anyone in particular? Because mine was the guy who played, apparently, the Prime Minister, the guy with the stupid hat who just does all the hand gestures to the king.
He had a point.
David Pasquizzi.
Yeah, I didn't expect him to be in this movie because I'm used to him from Strangers with Candy as her stepfather, and I'm like, holy shit, it's that guy. And in this movie, since he's wearing a hat, you don't see it's full of his head. He also reminded me of what's his name, the guy that's always in Wes Anderson movies all the time.
The Indian guy.
No,
There are a lot of people.
I'm trying to think of. He was in The Piano. Was it him in The Piano? We'll figure it out while we go on.
The piano.
I have my copy of Graham
Sam
Poodle.
Neill.
Sam Neill in that classic Wes Anderson movie. No, we'll figure it out. But he reminded me of this. So there's lots of random cameos. What about you, Bartek? Was there anyone that you're like, oh, I didn't expect them to be in this?
From a retrospective perspective, when I first saw this movie, I hadn't seen Superbad, so not that I was expecting, but I was surprised that like I look back on this and I recognize these people, and McLovin was someone who I was like, I forgot he was in this.
McLovin, what a great actor! Like, don't even want to bother with his real name.
Christopher Mintz-Plasse or something.
Platt, Mintz.
McLovin. McLovin is his best role, and it's followed by a close second of when he was in Fright Night.
Fright Night, the remake.
Yeah, he was in that as his best friend that gets turned into a vampire, like his nerdy best friend. So this movie has lots of twists.
I can't wait for this to be remade. By the way,
by who?
When Year One gets remade.
With Jack Black still in it, though.
Jack Black is the high priest.
But instead of Michael Cera, they just get Jesse Eisenberg and just call it a day.
Yeah.
But it's not a sequel, it's a reboot.
It's reimagining.
Yeah. And instead, this time of them leaving the village, Sodom comes to the village instead. Nice. Like it's a flip-flop world.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that idea. I like that idea a lot. Who would be the director of this? I think you could only...
A hologram of Harold Ramis.
No, I think McG. The classic McG of Charlie's Angels.
Maybe a different actor who was in Ghostbusters. Just
Dan Aykroyd, and it could be a sci-fi movie, and it's obsessed. And instead of them, they get abducted by aliens. Oh my god, this is the best. This is best. But
well, look, I mean, we're talking about what ifs. We're really talking about the greatest film ever
made, and that is Year One.
So why would you remake it? Really?
Yeah,
just look at this sterling bit of dialogue here that went on for a little bit too long. This whole exchange.
No, I think it went perfect. Okay, so my favorite gag is within those sequences where it cut to Michael Cera and he just did like a facial reaction shot and it just went way too long. It was just like him and he was just like, Michael Cera's face, it's awkward. Like there's no description. It's awkward even when he's trying to be cool. And it's just like him like smiling big and being like, because they're like, it wasn't murder. And he's like, I think it was.
You're right. I really think the lack of dialogue and just holding on a face is really the epitome of the comedy in this.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's enough for some people, as I have right here.
Do you want to tell us?
Yes. So for this show, I try to do quizzes of these movies and like read the questions and see how good I am at this film, and also what some of the alternate multiple choice answers are.
Sure.
For this one, I did a 10-question quiz and I got 100%. None of the answers were really that amazing. Like, one of them was, who ruled Rome at the end? Marlac, and that was wrong. But
clearly, it's not Rome.
So, for the first time, I'm not going to talk about any of the questions, but I want to read the description of this quiz.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, it was made by a person, and this is the description of the quiz. Hi. I find myself watching this movie 2 or 3 times a day.
A day.
So making...
A day.
Wow.
So
watch this film 3 times a day. Go on.
So making a quiz on it seemed to make sense.
Yeah, obviously.
You got to do something with your time.
Yep.
I mean, if you don't, you're just going to start killing people.
When you're in prison, you're going to do something.
Do not take this quiz unless you have seen the movie, as it may spoil it for you. Enjoy!
Were any of the questions hard?
No, I got 10 out of 10, I said. So
yeah, but did you find any of them, chin scratch worthy?
There was one question that, you needed more context. It was like, in the end, who was the chosen one? And
we all were.
And the answer was everybody. Yeah.
I wrote that in my notes, is he chosen? Are we all chosen? Who is the chosen one?
Well, that's the moral of the film. We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
Just take a minute. Look at that face. Harold Ramis there. His last acting role.
His last
directorial role.
And what a legend he was. Bartek, do you know who Harold Ramis is?
He's probably one of those people who I've seen in a lot of things, but I know that he was... He was Egon in Ghostbusters. He was this character right here. I was going to say Abraham, but that's a later character.
He's Adam.
Adam, that's it.
As in Adam of Adam.
Mm-hmm. Adam of Adam.
So Harold Ramis. I think he's more of a behind the scenes kind of worker, isn't he? Like, he's not that guy that you'd be like, oh, I would know what he looks like outside. If it wasn't for Ghostbusters, let's be honest, I don't think anyone would really kind of know what he looks like unless they really went in depth with this kind of stuff, you know? Jesus. But Jesus is not in this movie, but Harold Ramis as Adam is. But, yeah.
Harold Ramis, of course, getting his start at Second City in Chicago. Yeah. Becoming a writer. He sort of ditched improv for writing. Wrote and directed Animal House, went on to do Meatballs.
Meatballs.
And then this film.
I don't know, there was stuff in between. Didn't he do an animated Rodney Dangerfield movie where he was a dog?
Possibly.
It was the best movie ever. And Caddyshack 2.
Look at Jack Black. He's really been working out here. That's great.
Jack Black is one of those guys where he can really pull off being tubby. You know what I mean? And just like, I'll be honest, this film kind of reminded me of how fat he was because they make so many jokes about it. Well, oddly enough, when I think of Jack Black movies, I don't think of jokes about his weight being prevalent in them. Which I think is kind of neat, you know, because like, you know, like, it's so easy to be typecast as this tubby guy.
That's a great bit of scripting there. All my brain blood was in my boner. I think that's the...
Now, do you think... Here's a question. Do you think that was scripted, or do you think it was ad-libbed?
Just ad-libbed. Could have been.
No, I don't know.
You don't think his character is smart enough to know how blood works and like the biological structure of the human body?
They believe that the world ended beyond the mountains, but he has a clear understanding of the human respiratory system.
Again, I love the fact that the comedy is just layered, so many layers. It goes straight from a whoops, she's a lesbian gag to
shitting oneself in a fart.
To fart gags.
There's no in between.
Look at that terrible swing of David Cross. He just cannot cut wood. He has grown up in the city. Look at that.
Well, in all fairness, I think it is... No.
He cuts wood like a stand-up.
I mean... No, I think in all fairness, that is a choice of the actor and the director, because... Kane, throughout this movie, is, you know, a slacker. He doesn't actually work very hard. It seemed like Abel was the worker. So I'm just getting distracted by this guy fighting
goat in the background. There's a bit of goat wrestling.
Still fighting him.
Look at that. And he's gone. He just disappeared. The goat went.
So, you know... I felt like him not being able to swing the axe very well, it's very multi-layered when it comes to character, because I think it's very true to the character. If I saw Kane being able to actually do, like, physical labor, I wouldn't believe it, because I think, you know, he's too smart for that. He's too tricky, slippery to actually just be stuck doing physical work. He would get other people to do it, or say that he did it and only did a portion of it.
Right, sure. You accidentally just revealed the subtle joke.
What?
The first thing you said there was Cain being Abel.
There you go.
I guess
that is such a multi-layered joke.
Yeah, the Old Testament was full of laughs.
All Cain was good, what was caning?
Did this happen? Did he get struck by lightning? I'm not really up to date on my Cain.
Didn't he have like a mark of a murderer or something?
Probably.
That's probably it then, because every time it's brought up, he immediately says, "I didn't kill my brother,"
and he didn't. Obviously, it was an accident.
Ran into the rock
horseplay, as they said several times in a row. Now, Lliam, you're an aficionado on comedy. I mean,
yes.
you teach it, I guess, and you do all this stuff.
Sure.
Repetition is a part of comedy.
Yes.
And this film uses lots of repetition.
Yes.
How does that? And
sure.
how does the use of repetition in scenes in this movie help elevate the comedy in your brain?
I think it really it cries out of like. We will keep doing this until you laugh. Yeah. It's more of a defiant thing.
So you would say this is kind of like punk comedy.
We're going to do it again, and we just use the same gag again and again and again until you laugh. Yeah.
So it's kind of like that Tim and Eric kind of comedy?
Yeah, or is it kind of like that Andy Kaufman kind of comedy where he'll just read Great Gatsby to you?
I think it's doing a great disservice to Tim and Eric and Andy Kaufman. I think this is a standalone film. You cannot compare it really.
Yeah, that's true. But comedy still has roots within other things, you know. So
the repetition. Well, yeah. I guess the only repetition really is the classic. I need to lay with a woman.
Yeah,
and
that's
he gets frustrated at every turn. That's their
version. That in comedy standing is right up there with, you know, Who's on Second. You know, like it's right up there in that level of genius.
It ticks all the boxes for American comedy. So if you look at it, it's like you've got the buddy, the buddy system. You've got the mass approval moment at the end of the crowd. You've got
I'm so glad
digs
that you
at
said
lesbians, gays, and goats. It's fantastic. It's got
Let's
everything.
not forget also racism.
And racism, yeah, absolutely.
Everybody's favourite. No, I'm so glad that you mentioned the whole American comedy thing, because a lot of the reviews I found for this movie made great comparisons to Monty Python.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah.
And you shall enjoy that. So, you have that opinion, other people have those opinions. Maybe we're all right. Maybe it's Canadian comedy, which is the in-between of both, because you clearly said it in Canada earlier.
I think clearly Monty Python did a film called The Life of Brian, and this is set around the same time, so the comparisons are striking.
Striking.
Yeah.
It's striking. So, of course, here's one of the things. Jack Black's infatuated with two people, and that causes a lot of the problems. He's infatuated with this princess that he does meet quite late in the story.
Sure.
And he's infatuated with Maya, who, sure, she doesn't like. It's like Ben-Hur. She doesn't like him, and there's no real reason for them to like each other other than he has, as we quoted, what was it? Blood in his boner?
Yeah. Brain blood in his bones.
And there's a moment later on in the film where Jack Black actually does brush his erection against the princess when they hug goodbye. And she's like, okay, jeez. So, this is the type of... So, these are not...
Romans!
They're not Romans,
Look
though.
at that! What are they then?
They're sodomites.
Oh, okay, sure.
Well, no, in all fairness, though, the whole brush head Roman thing didn't just originate with just the Romans. They incorporated that using all the mighty cultures of other things to make themselves great. So,
Spit and polish for all your educational needs. Look at that.
Yeah. Yep. So, the idea that these guys are Romans can be very... it's easy to be misled by the idea because we're used to the aesthetics of Romans, but they have other things going on as well that aren't so Roman, like in the ideas of what we understand to be Romans.
Like the chariots, the red capes.
Well, no, but look at Vinnie Jones here. He doesn't he's supposed to be their Roman commander dude, but he doesn't look as the idea of what we understand Roman commander dudes in popular culture stuff to be very rich looking and upper classy and all that kind of shit, and still mean. I don't know why Jack Black has sand all over his face.
It's supposed to be a cocaine reference.
This is...
It's hilarious. Look at
It is up there with Tropic Thunder.
It's like he's just stepped off Scarface.
Wow, could you imagine Jack Black's Scarface?
His little friend being...
Hello! To my little friend.
No, but he would say it how Jack Black says things, where he would just be say hello to my little friend! And he just shouts it, and he does that thing where he's
say hello to my little friend! And
he does that thing where he does that, that quiver in his singing voice kind of thing. It was say hello to my little friend!
Yeah,
it's jeez.
This was a good gag.
That was
This was a very funny gag.
It was a gag that I did not expect to happen either. It seems so obvious, but you still don't expect it until it happens.
And what was the line? Even
warriors have to sleep.
Even warriors have to sleep. And both of them, who are very much opposites, went to sleep. So it says that these two do have the heart of a warrior in them.
Yeah.
While still being a funny gag.
And they somehow managed to, know where to walk. Considering they have no knowledge of navigation.
Well, Ryan, you forgot. Everyone is the chosen one.
Yes, true. But he is the chosen one, especially. Mm-hmm. So here we go. McLovin's finally here. Everybody's favourite actor.
Mm-hmm. Along with Hank.
Oh, Hank. We all know Hank, don't we?
Yeah, everyone on The Simpsons except some people.
Yeah. So Mo says... He sounds like Mo and Krusty at the same time in this movie. One of my favourite things I wrote down so many times in my note was God. Because he says God a lot.
Or the Lord.
No, mainly God. And he's like, my God! And he just says it in this way where it's like the word God is being spat at you. It's like, I'm going to sacrifice you in the name of my God!
So you brought up Monty Python earlier. Isn't this sort of...
Yeah, it's very Monty Python-esque, where it's like, no, it wasn't. We were just going to play... What was it? Stabby, stabby, Bernie, Bernie. That classic stabby, stabby, Bernie, Bernie. Mm-hmm. So we all are familiar with the biblical stories that they're making fun of in this movie. There's not one of them that flew over anyone's head. No.
I think I got them all.
Yeah. Good for you.
Did you, Ryan?
Obviously, but lesser, people who may not be as
Wait,
familiar.
this is based on the Bible. What?
No, I mean Old Testament.
It's an adaptation.
All right.
That's a sequel. It's
Sure.
the New Testament where they somehow leap to like Jesus times.
Yeah.
So biblical, Old Testament-y. And, in the film, they don't really establish if God is there.
Sure.
I think that's very interesting because they've established that, they've used the backdrop of, a time in which people were more prevalent to the belief of God. And, they don't even know. There's a point where Jack Black even says God or gods, whichever one.
Yeah.
He doesn't even know anymore.
Well, he's a simple hunter.
Yeah.
Michael, in that scene, though, that you were just talking about, Ryan, Michael Cera does say a line along the lines of, maybe God stepped out or something.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of the idea of the film. God stepped out.
No, I think Jack Black said that, and he's like, no,
maybe
how
it
would
was
God
Jack
step out? I mean, if he's God, he can create anything from nothing. Why would he need to step out all the time? Which is a good question. This film is a real kind of, a handbook for like religious
Atheists.
studies.
Is that
Studies. No, because it deals with both sides. The positives of devout belief and the negatives of that also, whilst also being a historical timepiece and of course is a great satire, and also showing the side of atheism.
Sure.
So it's a really thought-provoking piece of
I think that's
cinema.
what they set out to do, actually.
I mean, Harold Ramis, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know what his take on religion was at the end of the day. But, I imagine, maybe if we did further research into that, it would answer a lot of the questions that this film provokes. But at the same time, where does death of the author stand in? And I'm not being rude, I know Harold Ramis is dead, but, where do you think he would have stood on religion? Do you know by any chance?
Probably on the edge. On the edge of it.
On the-
Well, this movie is very edgy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, we just had Harold Ramis directed Hank Azaria there to be very menacing and close to the camera. I mean, it was an emotional piece. So, Bartek, when you were watching this,
The first time or yesterday?
either time,
Okay.
was there anything that stood out to you? Anything that you found really, really good or engaging or even peculiar?
So this movie does a spin on a lot of kind of modern... this is kind of related to the American comedy thing. Modern day jokes, but done in, quote, year one. Like when they're heading towards Sodom and Christopher McLovin follows them. And he describes his familiarity with Sodom as being him and his buddies sneaking out to go to Sodom and having some drinks. That's like a modern day kind of thing. Like, we snuck out making sure Dad wasn't watching to get drinks and stuff like that. So there was a lot of stuff like that in this film, and even this scene right here is talking about circumcision. It's like, obviously that had to start somewhere.
Well, yeah.
And maybe it started as a really awkward thing. Maybe it wasn't a God is doing this, we have to do this now.
That kind of referential thing of the modern day humor into historical or other time things goes way back into Hollywood. I mean, thanks to like Bob Hope and Bing Crosby, that's probably why we have that type of humor in Hollywood movies where they use modern slang and modern references and talk about things such as talking about going to Sodom like it was a nightclub.
Yes, but in this movie, it really feels like it hit that later 2000s, kind of the modern day kind of referential humor,
Yeah, I completely understand, and I feel like, Lliam, you're into...
It's almost like a string of sketches held together by a very flimsy premise.
But it's
of
not
being
that
set-
flimsy. It's
No,
not that flimsy
Clearly
of a
not
premise.
that flimsy.
Now, Lliam, you're into impro and improvisation,
Sure.
and I think it's fair to say that a lot of modern comedies, such as Year One and 40-Year-Old Virgin and Hangover and all these ones that we did have a little mention of before, and modern comedy now, really set in stone of ad-lib. Like, they have a loose plot and they just get actors like Will Ferrell and Jack Black and go, right, here's an idea of the scene. Just do the take 100 million times in funny ways, and we'll get that together. Do you think that's do you think this style of comedy of impro kind of evolving into this way into cinema is good or detrimental to comedy and films?
You know what? It's a weird. I'm not sure I've made up my mind about that yet because it's still a bit early to tell. But it certainly is starting to change the face of comedy films.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of fat in films now, I reckon. Whereas once upon a time they would strip back, they would write out the joke, perhaps the weaker jokes or the things that didn't work. And now, of course, because when digital came along and you didn't have to worry about the cost of film, suddenly you could do as many takes as you want, etc. And especially Apatow and his company and also a lot of his peers have that idea of, well, let's just keep going until we find the gold. And it comes out of that idea of people being comfortable with the philosophy of improvisation as well. So they go, we know we can do this. We know we can keep trying until we find something else. Yeah. And then I just feel sorry for the editors though. Yeah. They have to sit through like hours. Have you ever tried to sit through the deleted scenes from Spinal Tap? No. It's like another whole movie. There's another whole movie there of...
I've tried to sit through the same thing. Well, they did that with Anchorman. They recut and made another movie. And it's just like the legend continued, whatever. It's just like, geez. I find it weird. You just said it's too early to tell. This style, this specific style, this kind of brand, what we're watching right now, has been going on for what is like nearly over 10 years.
But if you compare this to a movie today from the Apatow, like this was 1 hour, whatever it is. What is it? It's
1 hour 35.
1 hour 35. An Apatow film now goes for at least 2 hours.
Oh my god!
And a lot of that stuff is like you could just drop on the editing room floor.
And well, in all fairness, in Apatow's defense, I feel like he specifically, in comparison to say Ramis here, will have comedy, blah blah blah, but he will have dramatic moments in the films. There are more meat to the bones. In comparison to say this and something like
he'll find the dark and the light.
He'll find the dark and light. He did 40-Year-Old Virgin, didn't he? Like that film has a lot of great serious moments in it as well. Like when you rewatch that, you kind of forget like, oh yeah, but then
But again, the premise is a one joke film, and it just kind of spirals it out to how much can we get in there.
And since you're big into impro, do you have, and you've been on films and TV and all that, do you find, how does it feel to do impro? Have you had to do impro for film and TV stuff yourself?
Because I was on the second season of Thank God You're Here, and that was a really interesting kind of experience because it was not anti-impro, but it was using the elements of impro when it doesn't work for comedy. Yeah. So if you look at it, this is getting so off the track of year one, but if you look at it,
year one raises all these questions.
It really does. They have guests who, some are really good at improvisation and some who are like a deer in the headlights. And the fact is that audiences love it when you fly and they also love it when you fail. So Thank God You're Here had the best of both worlds. And so they would have one person who would go with it and one person who would fail, and the audience was like, great, either way.
Yeah.
So it's like an improviser's gauntlet.
Yeah. Because for me, I like impro. I like seeing it live in comparison to film. My main problem is, I have a very large taste in comedies and films and TV shows and all that. And this style of, for me, I've made up my mind when it comes to the style of comedy. I don't love it. I kind of miss really well-written comedy where you can sit down and they really thought about this beforehand. While year one, as much as I do love it, there's no thought put into it as much as other comedies. And I think that is one of the strengths of year one at the same time. A lot of critics out there were, making comments about, and we have even jokingly that it's lazy and trite and all this. But at the same time, every decade, every year, there has to be that one comedy that's just like, I'm just here to make you laugh. I'm not here to make you think or make you feel anything. I'm just here to entertain you. There's no... Comedy doesn't always have to have a deep existential meaning to it, or doesn't always have to have like a giant theme or message or whatever. It's just like, if this is a funny idea, let's do it. And like you said, this kind of feels like sketches in between with like a plot in between.
Yeah, they've thrown everything in much the way, not in the same extent, but in the way that something like Flying High or those early films.
Yeah, or even Life of Brian.
Life of Brian would just do like gag. This is kind of... This has got a little bit more sort of storyline propping it up, but at the same time, they are trying to fit in as much as they can.
Yeah, they're trying to get in as much as they can. They're just trying to shove as much in there as they can get in, and I commend them on that.
Yeah, and even the main characters themselves, there are two different kinds of comedic actors. You've got the loud, crazy Jack Black and the Michael Cera, who's he really embraces the whole awkward
they're your
comedy.
typical silly and straight man kind of thing going on. Your Abbott Costello and all that. You got the one who's big and boisterous and idiotic, and you got the smaller, meek one who's the more logical one, but he can't get a word in elsewise. That's the kind of dynamic that's always been there, and they're using that to their benefit, because if you had to name anyone who's the big, loud, boisterous comedy legend, it's Jack Black, and especially at this time.
Yeah.
And then if you had to think of a meek weakling dude who can do a good straight man, it's Michael Cera. I mean, he was doing Superbad, he was doing all this stuff, and Arrested Development, him. Bam.
He's good at being the main character who wants to get laid.
Who, Michael Cera? Yeah.
Superbad, this.
I love, was it This Is the End, where he plays himself?
Yeah.
He's the biggest
Totally
asshole.
Yeah, it's great.
That's a great movie.
Yeah, so here we have finally entered into the whole room of the great characters.
Yes.
So, Adrian Brody, that's who he reminds me of.
Oh,
he reminds me with his...
He is the Dave in TJ and Dave, the improv duo that are currently taking over the sort of superstars at the moment in the improv world in Chicago.
Nice.
Because they do this long form comedy, which is slow and steady and really a lot of people coming to see them.
That's great.
They've just written a book too about it, actually.
That's awesome. I've been a fan of his since Strangers with Candy, and he plays Stu the Meat Man, and he just refuses to leave.
He came up with Carell and all those guys in Second City at the same time.
Yeah. He was I don't know why I did not expect him to be in this movie, but when he popped up, I'm like, hey, look, it's Stu the Meat Man. I love this guy. And I loved him in this movie. He was my favorite character. And he's apparently the Prime Minister, which confuses me greatly.
Yeah.
But he's the Prime Minister.
Great hand acting, I should point
Where
out.
he's just all hand acting and going, yes, yes, yes. And, Vinnie Jones, I will say, he's the most, I think, in all fairness, in the world of silliness that this comedy has, he's the one playing it full on straight. He's I am a soldier. And you got to appreciate that, because you do need one person in the world of cartoons to be a person, and Vinnie Jones is that one guy. There's never a silly moment with Vinnie.
Even when he asks, "Are you a girl? Do you want to kiss me?" It's threatening.
It is. I was threatened, and then Michael Cera makes it funny, and so does Jack Black. But he's genuinely on edge, terrifying in this movie. I don't want to mess with... Well, in all fairness, no one wants to mess with Vinnie Jones. No. I think he's a scary guy. Even when he was a soccer player, he was a scary guy. Do you know, when he was a soccer player, one of his big legendary things was he, tackled this guy and, went underneath and in between his legs, and he was sliding under. He just grabbed this dude by his testicles and dragged him down with him, and he got a red card for that.
What a classy guy.
Vinnie Jones, classy guy. I think, that's the real title of this movie. I want a movie where it's just Vinnie Jones as the main character, and, he's living a hard life, but he's a good guy deep down. That kind of rags to riches kind of thing.
Surely there's a film out there like that with Vinnie Jones. There has to be.
Snatch, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. You're completely correct.
He's got a son in that one.
Yeah. So... there's lots of things going on. Now, look, I don't...
First appearance of the great Australian actress, Gia Carides. Look at that.
Yes, I did notice her, actually. I looked her up, and I'm like, who is this person? I'm like, oh, yes, it's all coming back. I like the King is... What kind of aesthetic would you say the King has? Because he's got a European King thing going on, but they're clearly in Egypt or
this is
Middle East.
This is an issue that has plagued Hollywood right up to today, isn't it? Really?
Why is that? Why can't they figure it out? I mean, it seems like it's such an easy thing to understand. You know what I mean? It seems well, she's got an Egyptian thing going on with, her eyeliner and her, little tiara thing going on. He has, an Aztec-y thing going on. Why can't they decide? I love this guy, too, actually.
Matt, what's his name? Matt
I always see him and I just never remember his name.
He's one of the original founders of the UCB, the Upright Citizens Brigade in New York.
He's just in this. He's like, I'm trying to watch with my family. This is very Life of Brian-esque, where they're like listening to Jesus, and there's just like big nose. And it's just like this is very similar. I can see why people make that connection between Monty Python and this.
Sure.
It's very easy.
He's basically like at a football game in this scene.
It's like, come on, dude, I'm trying to enjoy this with my family.
With my family.
He was actually one of my things that made me laugh quite a lot, actually, because I didn't expect that to happen. If I had to make a criticism of this movie, it's not what is missing, it's who is missing. With films like these, there's always that one comedic actor or one or two people that you think, if that person was in it, this would increase by 10 points. And that person, for me, I think the King should have easily been cast with Fred Willard. He's amazing. You know Fred Willard?
Yeah.
I love Fred Willard. I think, where was he in this movie?
I'm always happy when I see him because I don't see him that often.
I'm happy when I see him because he looks happy all the time, even when he's saying terrible things. And I think that's what one of the main criticisms is like, someone should have been in this movie in a minimal role, making it great. Because with Fred Willard, he always makes them great.
That is a lot of the cast. I have to admit, a lot of people are in this film trying to make it great, and it's not working. So I mean, it is. It's the greatest film ever.
You're not seeing David Cross. No, but like the King and like the whole royal court, they barely do much. Like Stu, he didn't do much. It's really upsetting because, and here he is.
Kyle Gass.
With his testicles.
I love the fact that the bag is shaped like a little testicle. It's great.
What else would it be like?
Sack.
So, I'm not saying that this film inspired, Game of Thrones. But why is it that...
I think you just stumbled onto something there. Look at that.
Why is it that all eunuchs are bald? Can eunuchs not grow hair?
Yeah, it's directly related to the lack of testicles.
Is it? I don't know.
Yeah.
You always see them, they're always bald. Is that just like, yep, once you don't have testicles, you can't grow hair on your head?
It's to play around the idea that he's had things cut off.
Yeah.
His head's been cut
but
off.
if
Plus, his head looks like a big testicle to make up for it.
But not fair, it's like in Game of Thrones and in old Hollywood and new Hollywood, every time there's a eunuch involved, they're always fat and bald, or muscular and bald. There's no just like... skinny guy who's bald.
Maybe that's just like the standard thing of like cut off his balls and shave his head.
Well, according to Mel Brooks' History of the World Part 1, once you get the snip, you enlarge in size, apparently.
Sure.
And if I had to get my knowledge on eunuchs, I would get it from a Mel Brooks movie. That's also one of the comments is lots of people like, this is very Mel Brooks comedy. And I'm like, indeed it is. Because Mel Brooks
it is in the same
stopped.
vein, yeah.
Mel Brooks stopped after Dracula Dead and loving it, and there's been a hole in cinema since.
I've still got my fingers crossed for Spaceballs 2, don't worry.
Oh, we always got to cross.
Yeah.
I mean, another person who should have been in this movie was Leslie Nielsen. Where was Leslie in this movie?
Has he died by this stage?
No.
No, I think he had a few
He
years
died
left.
in like 2011 or 12.
By the way, Maya, who in this, is a great actress, and she has her own podcast.
How did this get made?
Yeah.
I listened to it. It's great.
Interesting premise, yeah.
It is, and I like that podcast is one of the reasons why I want to do this one. But I was like, we got to do full length audio commentary on these films and really dig deep down into them, because these are films that. They're not, in the eyes of the public, are not the greatest, but they're also not the worst. There's just something about them that falls underneath the radar. And why is that? Why does it always happen? There's always movies that get advertised, and this movie got advertised heaps and heaps and heaps, and you just never hear anyone ever talk about it. You're just like, what had all the elements, like Jack Black and Michael Cera and Howard Ramis and Paul Rudd and all these people. And the concept is not bad. This idea of these two Neanderthal dudes kind of stumbling into the Old Testament world and seeing it from a different perspective, it's not a bad concept. So where did it fail for the general public?
If it was made in 1989
or 1945,
1980, I reckon 1986, if this was made then, it would have just cracked along. It would have been a really, top comedy of the year. But because it was made in 2009,
it felt
I
like
think a
missed
lot of these jokes are like Howard Ramis is just recycling material, and a lot of the script is like pretty base it's comedy 101 with a lot of it.
Yeah, but I think for general public mass, Comedy 101 does very well because big comedies that are doing very well right now, like just basic ones. Like there hasn't for me been a comedy, like an actual one that's billed as a proper comedy at the cinema that's really knocked my socks off in ages, but knocks everyone else's socks off. Like for me, I'm in the minority when I say I hate Step Brothers so much.
Sure. Well, again, that's a film that lacks the clarity.
But that's considered a modern classic.
It's debatable.
Debatable, but true.
I saw it with my stepbrother in the cinema and we laughed. Yeah.
And that's a 10 out of 10 review from Bartek. When you saw this, did you laugh?
I must have, because it's very funny.
I must have.
I think I laughed out loud about three moments. There are three distinct places where
What moments were those?
where a guffaw came out.
Yeah.
I think it was when he hit her on the head earlier on, and it didn't work, and she hits him back. That was a great moment. And I think the throwing of the testicles. in the stoning scene.
The thing about the testicles that made it funny for me was actually the line delivery from the king, where he's like, "Did he just throw his ball at him?"
Was that the high priest?
No, the king.
I thought the high priest said it.
No, there's the king. He's like stroking his beard. And he's like, "Did he just throw his ball at
And
him?"
the thing is the fierce determination of Oliver Platt to get his chest oiled. I mean, that was great.
Oliver Platt is every laugh out loud moment in this movie
He's
for
great.
me.
Yeah, I think my favourite moment was when they were going to get...
What a
Look at that. What a chest.
when they were going to get stoned, and they didn't go for the obvious joke of, we're going to smoke or whatever. But apparently Jack Black saying, let one person do it was enough for them to say, yeah, fair enough, one person has to do it.
and he chose a kid and the
eunuch.
I'll be honest, one thing that did make me laugh was that kid has a hell of an arm on him. Like, that actually got me.
That was the repetition that worked quite well.
The kid made me laugh because he was so keen. Like that was like the thing about it. Like he watched them murder someone. I actually did like David Cross made me laugh quite hard in this movie when he said. When he's listing out all the crimes that they're done, and you just listen to them, and they're just all rhyming words that have no context. And he just goes
leprosy
and sodomy, and they're like, "Oh, what?" He's like, "Oh, sorry, refusal of sodomy," and they're like, "Yeah, boo." I love that. Puppetry. Yeah.
Some of them aren't caught by the subtitles.
Calligraphy. I think calligraphy was one. Like, no, not calligraphy.
Are we assuming that people have watched this as they listen to us do?
They should have.
Because we've just done a whole bunch of spoilers.
Tough for them. I think if you guys, I told you at the start, if you have not seen Year One and you don't own a copy of it, shame on you. Harold Ramis would be literally rolling in his grave or urn or whatever. I don't know what he decided to do with his body afterwards.
It's not that
in
hard,
disgust.
Guys. It's not that hard. I found a copy for $2 at a cash converters and I got half off.
Half. So that's a whole dollar he saved. Thank you. That's $1. That's what the movie should be called for Bartek. Jeez. So this movie has love triangles in it, left and right.
Does it?
Jack Black's in a love triangle. He doesn't know which one.
He's in a triangle.
He's in a love triangle because he doesn't know which one he wants to bone with his blood boner. I mean,
no brain blood in his boner, Ryan.
Yeah, get it right, Ryan.
Oh, get the fuck out of here, Ryan. You get it wrong.
You're gonna quote the script. Get it right.
No. You get
quality
lines.
lines.
You get the feel of the thing. I will be honest. Jack Black, I found he grew on me in this movie. At the start, I didn't really connect with him as much as I think the film would have liked me to. But I felt like what really connected me was his understanding of being chosen. I think that really made his character a three-dimensional character. Well, at the start, he was selfish, two-dimensional, and that's just part of basic 101 of character development. His character grows. At first, I think he is supposed to be grating, and he is supposed to be annoying, and you're not supposed to like him. You're supposed to empathize with Michael Cera, who's the straight-head logical one, but as it goes on, you realize Jack Black
You think his character grew, do you?
No, because
the character development of this film is enormous, isn't it?
Yeah, well,
look, it might be sudden at the end, but it happens.
No. Think about it.
I think it grows with how clean his hair gets.
No. I think what happens with Jack Black is he becomes less grating, and what I think is, yeah, he still does stupid things, but that doesn't, like, with comedy, stupid guy's a stupid guy forever. You don't want at the end of the movie the stupid guy's a normal genius. You don't want that. That doesn't usually work. You don't want that. You don't want that. Michael Cera is the guy who should develop, but Jack Black develops too, and he helps Michael Cera, because if it wasn't for Jack Black, he would never have left the village. He would never have lost his virginity to his sister. He never would have developed or moved, because Michael Cera was happy in his shell. Jack Black helped this movie progress in a good fashion, and I think he really did grow and develop, because he could have easily become a dictator if this movie didn't show his development. Because at the end, when he was like pretty much leading up to being a dictator,
You fear me.
it seemed like, well, that character at the start that we met, that we still are familiar with, that seemed logical for him, but at the same time it didn't feel right, as it didn't feel right with Michael Cera, because the character we've watched since The Village wouldn't become this person.
But it's also the downfall of the film, because normally American comedy, or any American film, will lead up to that mass audience approval moment where we all accept you as one of us. That's every American film. And what happens in this film is that he does it 4 or 5 times with each proclamation. And so by the time he gets to the end of it and he says, you know what, you can all be yourself, everyone goes, oh, I don't really want to be that. And it actually ends the film on a downward note as opposed to the normal upward, we are all one, no one is individual.
That's true. But yeah, again, you know the funny thing is, you have the knowledge that after he rides out of town, Sodom is gonna get fucking pulverized.
I was disappointed. I was waiting for that moment and it never came.
I never did. Here's something I really love. You were talking about American films do that. There's this North Korean movie where Kim Jong-il kidnapped a film director and producer, and he made them make their version of Godzilla. And the story of this film is great, where the Godzilla monster helps the rebels take down the evil, corrupt kingdom, right? And install a new, great communist regime. But the filmmakers secretly had a subtle thing that was anti-communism, because they fucking got kidnapped, where the Godzilla monster, after helping them, refuses to leave, sits down in a giant throne, and demands to be fed all the iron and tears of the citizens. And he becomes a fat, corrupt monster. Now, this movie could have ended with that, with Jack Black refusing, and he becomes like, I really think that this movie could have taken a really great weird direction. Like I mentioned before, anything's possible. If Jack Black did become a dictator, like I said, it's not too far out of character, but it's just enough for you to feel uneasy. But that's what happens with these dictators. They think, oh, I'm chosen, or oh, I'm the leader, or they're convinced of, they're big enough for this, and then they turn corrupt. And I think if that happened at the end of this movie, and then there's a sequel called Year 2, and it's about like Jack Black and they're trying to save him from his own like desires of power, it'd be a great film.
I think you should write that film, Ryan.
Jack Black, Citizen Kane. Just underline it.
I like how Michael Cera waited 2 hours for Jack Black to come, and then he wiped the hair off.
I like that it took him 64 minutes into the film to finally snap at Jack Black and basically tell him to go fuck himself. Because I'll be honest, Jack Black, somebody needed to tell him to shut up, and the only person doing that was Marlock. And all he said was, I'll kill you when you stand. It's just do it.
I really expected something to happen at this scene, and nothing did.
I really expected this penis thing to be like a lever thing, that when he pulled it, secret...
It's a beautiful homage to the Goonies. Look at this. It really is.
I was really just expecting like he was going to pull this thing, the dick. He's going to pull it, and then a door would open, and it would show like the high priest was doing something corrupt or evil, and then they'll be like, look, he's a liar, because he didn't want anyone in there.
See, that's what I needed, more writers, Ryan. I needed more writers.
Well, I don't know how many writers this movie had.
There's 3. Albert Ramus and 2 other guys.
Who are the other guys?
Just like...
Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray? I knew it. It's Ghostbusters 3.
Or they went on to write for The Office, and that was all, I think. But
oh, wow. What a good career move, The Office.
Yeah. But, they haven't done much else since.
Oh, that's upsetting, because this film, it is a promising start, Like, if you were starting out and you wrote this, it wouldn't be a bad one to put on there. Like, it's a well-known film. Like, sure, it didn't go too well, and some some of the writing could be better, but you could just be like, that was Harold Ramis, not me. And then they'll be like, oh, it is true. I mean, he hasn't made a good movie since...
It's nothing like on a resume going, I didn't write this bit. No, I didn't write this bit either.
Note down, I wrote this scene, and they like have the minutes and say what the scene is, like the really funny one. It's like, remember that classic scene when Michael Cera pisses on himself? I wrote that.
Do you remember that scene when Michael Cera just pulls a funny face for like longer than he should have? I wrote that. I told him to do that.
Remember when Jack Black eats the shit? He improvised that.
That was Harold Ramis. Harold Ramis, yeah.
Yeah, Harold Ramis stood on set, squatted down, did a deuce, and said, "Eat this."
And he put
Eat
green in
this.
it though to make
And
it healthy.
then no, because he did Ghostbusters, so there's obviously green slime in his shit all the time because he's never ever done a better project than Ghostbusters 1.
Fecal matter's hilarious in any
I
language.
think, you know what this movie is reminding me of? Ghostbusters. And when I think of Ghostbusters, it reminds me of, I miss Rick Moranis. He should have been in this movie as the
Sure.
king.
That is.
Could you imagine, like, they pan the camera to the king and he's sitting from behind and he turns his head around, he's got those big glasses on, it's kind of like Spaceballs where he lifts up his helmet, he's still got the big doofy glasses on, and you just like, Rick Moranis, but he's supposed to be intimidating. And that's like the best Rick Moranis is intimidating Rick Moranis, like Into
Sure.
the Fire Rick Moranis, Parenthood Rick Moranis when he's mean.
Yeah.
Now, I think, you know, this film...
My Blue Heaven.
I love My Blue Heaven, actually. Why are you laughing?
I'm going to play against type and see how that works. Look at those hairless rats. What was with that?
Well,
Why are there hairless rats
because
in this
it's
film?
Egypt.
They're
duh.
eunuchs.
You know, this...
I read there was a blooper in this scene coming up where when he's urinating on himself, a hand suddenly comes into the screen. I don't remember it, but it'd be interesting to see if that does happen.
Yeah, I think I read that as well. It's like the lower right hand or something, or corner of the screen.
I just love the fact that he's like, close your mouth. So he does, and he drowns because it goes into his nose. And you know what? It's good casting because you know why? Michael Cera's face is so peculiar that you don't really realize that he has a giant nose. Like, considering the rest of his face, he's got a small face. Because he has no real chin, so it gives the illusion that his face is small because his hair cut, even though he's wearing the stupid long-haired wig and now his hair has been cut.
Yeah.
It gives the illusion that his head is quite little and that his face is small for his head, right? So he's got
This is not something I've spent a lot of time thinking about.
But think about it, because I've had to stare at this face for 68 minutes, and I've had to think about it quite a lot. And he's got a fairly large nose, so when the urine is trickling down, it's easier to get in his big nose. Right? So they
I wonder
did,
how long.
they did real good casting on this.
All I could think about was how long did they actually have to have you up there for?
2 days of
without-
shoot.
Oh, look at that.
And it's like clearly like a hose or something. Like that amount of urine is strong. Look, he's like he's drowning. He's like no.
Oh, there's a hand.
Yeah. That's his hand.
It's funny because this movie, a lot of people would say that's not a funny scene. That's just gross out humor. There's nothing wrong with gross out humor. I think gross out humor, when used correctly, like in that scene, can really elevate the comedy to a different
Sure.
degree.
Takes it up to another level.
I mean, sure, that wasn't as gross as Jack Black eating poop. Arguably, you could argue, but I don't think it was. And, you know, I think, you know,
what, with the sound down, this could be Game of Thrones. Look at that.
I really think Jack Black should be in Game of Thrones as like, you know, the next king. And he's like, all right, it's me. And he just, like, grabs one of the swords off the Iron Throne and, like, cuts a guy. And he's like,
That'll be the moment that they described Game of Thrones as jumping the shark.
jumping the jack. And then, yeah. And, now there's someone who should be the king. We should just have Henry Winkler in Game of Thrones, and he's still a nice guy though. He's just like Henry Winkler comes across as like the nicest guy ever. Like I've never seen him like a dick.
No,
he always just comes across, and when he's in it, oddly enough, Henry Winkler's one of the few things that make Adam Sandler movies better. Like you know how Adam Sandler has those stable of actors like Rob Schneider, and you go ugh, and then you see Henry Winkler as his dad, and you're like, you know what?
Yeah.
This film has another level of respect. not saying that Henry Winkler, Rick Moranis, and Fred Willard should have been in this movie, and they were the lead characters.
It would have made all the difference, Ryan. It would have made all the difference.
Liam, here's your scene.
He's thrown.
See, I was right. It's on your list.
I was wrong. It was a high priest.
Spectacular.
And I just love that. It's like, no, that doesn't count. That was a testicle. I think it counts. Because, what is that? Oh, the king. I wrote he was stroking beard king. Because all he did was stroke his beard all the time. Is that a habit, Liam? You have, and Bartek, you both have facial hair beards.
You can stroke the beard in order to buy you time and make you look like you know what you're saying.
Is it good acting technique, you would say?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it makes him look noble. Like, yes, I indeed don't know what the script demands of me.
That kid's got it out. That's a great line.
Holy shit, that kid
God,
has
there's
it.
two of us here.
This film, David Cross is really trying to. You know what? I'll be honest. I'm not a real big fan of David Cross outside.
He's great.
No, outside of like his main stable things,
Sure.
like like Mr. Show.
When he
and
turns up in other things.
when he does other outside of Mr. Show and Arrested Development, and this obviously.
Kimmy Schmidt, he's great in that.
I haven't had the chance to watch Kimmy Schmidt yet. It's been one of those ones that's like eluded me.
It depends on the role, but he brings something.
He always brings
I
something.
think it was the saving grace in Elvin and the Chipmunks.
Oh, you've watched that? Oh, no.
You know, funny thing, we talked about how the main...
No, don't say... There's no saving grace in Alvin and the Chipmunks.
You're right, I take it back.
Other than their great version of Uptown Funk and the newest one, The Road Chip.
I refuse.
You know why they probably got
the hand
David
actor.
Cross for this movie?
Why? Because
Liam's-
other Arrested Development people like Michael Cera are in it?
No, Liam said earlier that this film, it's all centered around the zero. So they were thinking, like, what is some zero that we can put in there? Now, there's a game out there called GTA San Andreas with David Cross in it, and his character's name is Zero.
The conspiracy theory comes
I
alive.
thought you were going to go in a different direction where you're like,
That's
well,
great.
this movie does deal with elements of religion, and his last name is Cross, which does have something to do with religion.
My lord, that's true!
That's right, it's all coming together.
And David, as in Goliath.
Yeah.
So, this movie's multi-layered,
Yeah.
would you say that that's Jack Black's real hair? Kind of
Yes. Oh, sure, why
I
not?
think so.
Because...
Paul Shear, yeah, fantastic. Actually, he is married to the character of Maya there.
in real life, not in
real life.
the movie. It's just the mud guy. He's a volunteer. He loves mud. He's just obsessed
Great
with
line.
mud. I love Marlak has an unexpected character development, which is, I want to kill you where you stand too. Yeah, sure, I'll help you. Like, where it just kind of happens out of nowhere. And I think it's not just, you know what, I'm wrong. It doesn't happen out of nowhere. It's completely explained. Just him being whipped.
At this moment, when Jack Black gets whipped, half the audience is going, yeah!
So is Jack Black. Little did we know he likes
It
being
looks like
whipped.
it really hurts. And we're all like, there's nothing funny about that. But there's a certain
This is the moment where
cathartic moment about it.
This is the moment where I love movies like this, including kids' movies, where they take a sudden dramatic kick to the head to the audience, such as like this. Reminds me of Prince of Egypt, the animated movie, and how that movie will randomly be like, yeah, he killed a man, and it's brutal.
Sure.
This is like, oh yeah, you want to see Passion of the Christ with Jack Black? Here you go, and just whipping him, and you're just like,
There's another remake right there. Passion of the Christ with Jack Black. That's fantastic.
as the Passion. Yeah, I love when you get Michael Cera whipped, you don't feel that sensation of joy because you're like, yeah, he doesn't deserve that. He had hair on his hand for 2 hours and he didn't wipe it off. Leave him be.
And also, he just kind of flinched at it.
Yeah, he didn't scream. He just went. Michael Cera's just like.
And he makes a comeback, too.
There's a joke that he should have made where he gets whipped with it and he makes no reaction. It's like, don't you feel the pain? It's like, I'm always in pain. Just like, that little Michael Cera that Cera wimpy way where it's like, I'm always in pain and just conceal, don't feel. That's his character in a
Look at
nutshell.
that great extra acting in the background. There.
Which
Look at that.
one?
Just in the back, like on the
Look at
right
that.
hand side of the king. It's great.
This king suddenly takes a dramatic turn too, where he's like, yeah, I'm going to kill my stepdaughter. Like,
Yeah. why
he's
not?
like, he did warn her about her insolence, but he didn't say, I'm going to kill you because of it. Also, is it supposed to be she's a virgin? too? Is that the implication?
But, yes, sure.
I'd believe Olivia Wilde, the sexiest vegetarian alive,
Yeah,
is a virgin,
totally.
of course. She's married to Jason Sudeikis.
Is she really?
And I find that another chapter in comedians that have hot wives. You know what I mean? Like, what's his name? The fat guy in every Adam Sandler movie. You know,
Kevin Smith? Kevin James, I mean?
Kevin James. He has an attractive wife too. And it's just like, good lord. Comedians, I guess, get the attractive wives. Is this a true story? Are we going to get attractive wives, Bartek?
I hope so.
I have to go on the record and say yes.
You're a Spectre into the future.
Sure.
Woo. So here's something. Hank Azaria comes...
Chicks dig a funny guy.
Yeah, and money.
Like Michael Cera.
if you're really good.
What are they doing there? They're just waving their hands.
Yeah, because they're like, yay, sacrifice, woo. Yeah. Without sound, you could just put your own soundtrack to that and then just jazz it out to jazz.
Maybe we should have picked English for the hard of hearing for the subtitles.
Nah.
Look at that. What was he wearing underneath that tunic?
Money, I imagine.
Yeah.
He's strapped onto him. It's like, if you're going to throw me off a freaking wall. I like how hammered she is. She's like, all right, I better get drunk for this.
This is a good gag. I like this gag.
Where
always my favorite. Like, it's never tied on. That's always the favorite.
No, he gave him the wrong one anyway. I love it. Yeah, it is a classic gag. There are some gags that, no matter how many times you see them,
I'm doing it now. I'm genuinely laughing at this scene because it's ridiculous.
You're probably also playing music in your head.
Yeah.
Like
this though is indicative of like the new thing that's happening with American films is that there's always a scene like that.
A big action piece?
Yeah, or a roller coaster scene. Because you go, that's the moment that they're going to...
Oh, like a Rube Goldberg kind of thing?
Yeah, but that's the moment they're going to put in the video game. You know,
yeah.
And you always just wait for it. You go, where's the video game mode?
Yeah, like when I watched Despicable Me 2, there was like an obvious one, like, oh, this is going to be an iPhone game, and it was an iPhone game.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. At first I thought you were talking about like, for some reason a comedy just has to have a big giant action piece in it because Jackie Chan really set the precedent in cinema.
Sure.
But, no, I'm not joking, because think about
that's valid.
Think about it. American cinema really changed when Jackie Chan entered the scene in the early 2000s because he made comedies, action comedies now, which wasn't, let's be honest, was that really a big thing in American cinema? Action comedies?
I don't know, is that? I'm trying to think of any of that.
I mean, you got action movies with comedies like Lethal Weapon, but they're not action comedies like what we understand them today. You know, they're just like, action with comedy in them and all that. But now, like, I feel like Jackie Chan really set the precedent because you have to have these big game set pieces.
Well, Jackie Chan only came into America quite late.
No, that's what I mean, but he changed American cinema because he came quite late into the game, like early 2000s.
Right, I'm going to have to do some more research on that one, my friend. I think a jury's out on that one.
Nah, it's in. I've decided I'm correct. And that poor woman got punched by a weak-ass Michael Cera.
Yeah,
Wouldn't it be a surprise if he took off the tunic and he was really fit?
I would be surprised. I said it's shown before in painted gold. All these little
but gold's
pop belly
deceiving.
sticking out. It's great.
Gold's deceiving. And why doesn't he just throw her into the fire already? I mean, you have one job, priest.
Yeah.
There's many times in movies where there are tropes that you just accept. Do you find that annoying that, movies have manipulated our understanding where you have the bad guy, instead of just stabbing Jack Black, he hits him in the face and lets him have a chance to fight him. You just accept that because we've grown up on this? Do you find that kind of annoying?
Yes.
Well, to give this film some credit, one of those common examples is like when you grab a woman's wrist, she's like, you've got her down.
Oh yeah, you got her. She's not going to kick you in the nuts.
At least the High Priest is kind of grappling her.
Yeah, and now she's like, I love how he puts it on his on his thing, and he's just like, "Yep, this works." Like if he was king, he would wear both. That's the best part.
Well, for now, he is officially king because he's.
And then he's like, "All right, I'm gonna put this."
This was always weird pacing too. Look at this weird pacing. It's like he cuts
where they're
action
gonna have
scenes
sex.
To this very quiet conversational.
Well, that happens a lot of the times. Think about that.
But as far as the rhythm of the film, though, like it's just like this whole last.
It's
section,
the climax.
Yeah, it just deflates under the.
No, it inflates in a different direction than one would have.
Look, I'm not saying it's not the greatest film ever made. I truly think it is, but there's just some weird kind of like third act sort of.
Is that the sound of that guy who got thrown over the edge by Marlak? He's like, well,
there was an old man in the crowd who
just
not
that,
doing
like,
anything.
Well, how come my understanding of this is that Kane is still alive at the end of the movie? Just kill him already. Because I like how Vinnie Jones is technically an antagonist, but he's not the antagonist.
He just hit him with a sword.
He's probably the strongest.
He hit him with the butt of his sword.
Yeah, right.
And then he tried to slash him because that's a soccer kick there.
Yeah.
That's typical Vinnie. He's like, I gotta include a soccer kick in there somewhere, mate. I gotta use my. Juno Temple was so pleased that she saw Michael Cera's turtle penis. Because
well, we don't know for sure that
he said because he came out of his shell.
Another classic.
Another. Oops, I did that. Sorry. Just stab him, Vinnie. Jeez, I love Vinnie. You know, I feel sorry for him in this as this character. I feel sorry for this character because all he's trying to do is maintain order. He doesn't even really care about the king because he lets his own men kill the king. He just wants to maintain order of the city. That's what he wants. That's all Vinnie wants. And isn't that... You know, I'm not saying that this movie's trying to promote violence against the authorities, such as the police, but I think it might be.
Yeah.
And even the Prime Minister, Stu the meat guy, just walked out. That's the last we see of him.
Yeah.
When he goes, I want him to be king. He did an alright job. He sat there looking mean. Now, I had a big debate. People were like, why does he just spontaneously burst into fire? Like, not just like... When he gets pushed in, fire...
Because he's covered in oil and very close to the fire.
Yeah, that's what I said. And then they're like, he falls in and just explosion. And I'm like, well, obviously, because he was very large and covered in oil.
Yeah.
I mean, jeez.
And he might have farted.
He had residue.
I mean, he shit his pants. That's what happens when you die. That's just a fact. What happened to the eunuch by the end of this movie? He's just like, I'm fine?
Well, he was in the crowd, wasn't he?
I didn't notice. That's what I'm saying. Like, there's so many people.
I don't know, once you've thrown away your testicles, you've got not much else to live for, really.
Just one. I bet he picked it up, though. And he's like, I gotta keep this. I gotta have some... They don't even know how to clap. This is a society that is being taught how to clap by a society that believed that over the mountains was the end of the world.
Sure.
Well, they learned that clapping is what makes it rain.
Here's the funny thing.
Because they stop for a second, then it stops.
Oh, there he is. I saw the eunuch. Now, here's the thing. It would have been better if Michael Cera taught them to clap because he was the inventor. Like, he's like, good. That's where you carry water. And this seems like a logical idea.
Well, see, he's eaten from the tree of knowledge. So
the plot device of knowledge, yeah.
Well, Michael Cera comes up with, like, the logical kind of stuff, whereas I think clapping is, like, an instinctual thing, which is, I think, more Jack
Black
thing.
is very instinctual.
He's like, yeah, I'm happy. So, like, cavemen, they like, jump up and down, wave their hands, maybe hit them together. It's like, oh, it makes a noise.
Ooh. This movie, you know, it has lots of elements that are truly great in it, like McLovin. I mean, this movie really is a time capsule to 2009, especially. You know, even though it's set in the past. If you showed someone this and you're
reaction
like...
shots.
Yeah.
Sorry.
If you shown this to someone, say, who wasn't born in 2009, like 10 years down the track, you go, this is what the late 2000... Like, this is what the late, you know... What the noughties were like. Here you go. And they'll be like, wow, what a weird time to be alive. And you'll be like, it was... We suffered the Jack Black era, but now we're on the good era of Danny McBride. You know, I imagine it's gonna. Oh. Really, the next episode we should have done. We have another one lined up. The next one we should have done was Your Highness with Danny McBride, because both of them are very similar.
These reaction shots shit me so much.
You mean they make you happy?
They're just the emotional journey that they have to go through.
I like the eunuch has no care. Like, he's like, you, and he points at the eunuch, and the eunuch's just like, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I already have no testicles, so what's
Look
the
at
point?
that. There's another one. Oh, God. Just terrible.
Well, if you were the director of this movie, how would you done it, Lliam? Because, I mean, Howard Ramis is an acclaimed director. I mean, you know, geez.
Is he acclaimed?
He made Ghostbusters.
Sure, okay.
Did he direct it?
Look at that rain machine.
Yeah, he directed it.
It's just like, can we direct some more over here?
Howard Ramis directed Ghostbusters, right?
Yeah. No, Ivan Reitman.
Oh, no. I was the fool.
Look at that, cleaner hair.
Well,
if Jack Black, the cleaner his hair, the more of a hero he has become.
yeah, now he's going to rub his penis up against her in a hug.
Really?
Beautiful stuff. Well, the one I
don't
watched...
remember to see that one.
No, you didn't see it. You just she says okay.
That's another thing, Ryan. Have you noticed a difference between what you
Not
saw?
a single difference.
Okay, so I think...
so here's the hug, and then she's like, and then okay. Like the way she reacts and the way they react, and her body flinches. It's like clearly.
Well, see, you read erection into that. I just read sort of copy feel.
The Prime Minister guy had a quick appearance.
Was he the camel?
No, he was no, he was behind them while they were hugging. Sure.
Oh, well, I guess he realised
He did put the crown back.
I guess he never did anything too.
No, he was the only, in all fairness, the only person other than Vinnie Jones that cared about the people. Jeez Louise, because he was like, maybe we need a new high priest. I'm not saying Will Brooks should have been the Prime Minister, but if he was.
Sure.
No, the movie's ending, how does that make you guys feel? You know, how do you feel about that? Do you wish that we got to live in this universe longer? We got to meet these, like, stay with these characters that try and kiss with their mouths fully. We've all done this, haven't we? We've all tried to kiss with our mouths
Not
unhinged.
with each other, no.
Not with you and me, but Bartek and I. Woo! There's a reason why it's called spin polish, you know. And yeah, and
I've been lured here under false pretenses.
no, the right pretenses. Talking about year one, the best kind.
I
I like how Michael Cera is obsessed with, yeah, my hair has piss in it. Like, that was a constant thing.
Has Michael Cera's hair gotten darker?
Yeah.
Because he has piss in it.
I think he must have been getting ready for another role.
No, what happened?
after this.
What happened was he had a haircut.
Yeah, but his hair was never that dark, though.
At the top, it was.
No,
Yeah.
not at the start.
Yeah.
Well, is it on the cover?
On the covers,
Look at
but the covers of
He's blonde.
things,
He's got
covers of
fully red
things are
there.
despicably inaccurate to the actual movies sometimes. Like, look at him.
Unlike now, though.
Yeah, and he's just like, yeah, piss in my hair. It's like, we get it. You got pee in your hair. But we need repetition, which is an important staple
It's true.
of comedy.
That's true.
Being comedy experts, what were the comedic expertise that this movie really excelled in to you, personally?
I think its biggest draw card, its biggest strength.
Yeah, its biggest strength.
In comedy.
Well, I'll get you warmed up. Blackface, 10 out of 10.
Name one scene that didn't have a joke, Ryan.
I can name a scene. The scene where Kane is listening to them go into the thing and then he betrays them. That wasn't that funny. No joke.
I like the twist. I like the twist on the joke or the setup. Like they do a couple of good false punchlines, and their attempts at the physical setups are really good. So I do like it. What was that, by the way?
A weird pinky
Was she
finger?
did a little pinky finger up at the Queen? That was weird.
I don't know. We'll have to listen to their audio commentary to find out.
There is an audio commentary.
Is it really?
Yeah, Harold Ramis,
way.
Jack Black, and Michael Cera on this
Holy
DP.
shit!
I didn't realize that Eve was also
This
there.
is for me. It's an interesting film because it also uses a lot of improvisers. Like there's a lot of improvisers in this.
I think, obviously, Liam, you have more of an understanding
Matt
of
Besser, that was his name. Sorry.
You have more of an understanding of impro than I do, but I honestly just don't. I feel like the joy of impro can be lost very easy on film. I think.
Yeah, if you've ever tried to watch a completely improvised film, it's tedious. It really is. But in small moments, like in small reactions, and in that experimental kind of like try and find a better line.
Yeah.
Which was something Bill Murray does a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you can do that, and I think it's great.
You know who's a director that was his films, some of the most iconic moments are improvised? That you wouldn't think is Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah.
Like, most of his films, you'd think Stanley Kubrick's the guy who's like, do 100,000 takes and get it right.
Yeah.
Every frame of painting. But the most iconic moments in most of his films, improvised. Like Singing in the Rain and A Clockwork Orange, improvised. Or pretty much...
who hates improvising in films? Kevin Smith.
Really?
Yeah, working with Seth Rogen on Zack and Miri Make a Porno.
I did not know that.
Seth Rogen kept trying to improvise new lines and scenes, and Kevin was just like, "Stop it! Just do the script."
I wrote this. I tried.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, in all fairness, Seth Rogen is one of those actors that is the big, of this era, the big comedians where they just do impro all the time. Well, Kevin Smith does come from the 90s where it's like, I wrote this script, you better respect the script.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why he wrote it. So I cannot understand. But yeah, Kubrick, Full Metal Jacket, every line from the drill sergeant is improvised.
Yeah, but that's because he was a drill sergeant,
I
so
know.
he knew what he was doing.
But still, you think, like, for instance, Kevin Smith, comedy guy, you think he would allow impro on the improvisation, and then you think Stanley Kubrick, meticulous filmmaker, very cold, wouldn't allow impro in there, but they do. He does. It's just kind of that flip on what you expect.
Well, wasn't that...
Depends if you trust your actor.
Wasn't that wasn't that a big thing with Stanley Kubrick? He was very meticulous, but he made an exception for Ali Ermey.
And all of them really, like Jack Nicholson and Malcolm McDowell, all of them. Every movie he does, Peter Sellers, all of them. He just allows.
But you'll find that generally the history will go. They'll get the shot first. They'll get the script. They'll do the script. They'll get the shot, and then they'll say, "All right, let's see what else we can do." And then I think it's maybe you get something from that. But they always cover themselves first. I don't know many directors who go straight in and go, "Let's just see what happens."
Hey, Joel Schumacher's one.
Yeah, that's right. we got hundreds of millions of dollars worth of special effects to do in this film. Let's just improvise around it.
Have you heard George Clooney talked about Joel Schumacher on Batman and Robin, and his direction for him was, "Okay, now this is a funny scene, George, but remember, your parents are dead." Action.
That's comedy right there. That's
action.
Comedy right there.
Okay, so the movie has unfortunately ended. I stayed all the way to the...
I missed it. What happened at the end?
We'll start again. No, unfortunately it has ended, and I thought there was going to be something at the end of the credits. Like, at the end, there was going to be like, coming next year. Year 2, and it would be like 2 different actors. It's their story, and they bump into Jack Black along his travels of the world. Nope, unfortunate. So let's do a review and a rating of how we feel. Bartek, I want to hear from you first, mister. What your review, and if you had to give it a rating out of anything.
Well, this movie, to use the really, really tight phrase, roller coaster ride. Definitely a roller coaster ride.
An emotional one and a physical one.
An emotional one, mostly a physical one, and definitely a comedic one. I don't think there's any doubt from watching the film, listening to us talk about it, I don't think you can doubt that this is a comedy film.
Yeah.
Lots of it.
Lliam, stop laughing. You're trying to be serious.
Sorry.
It is a film.
It is, that's right. Yeah.
It's an unappreciated masterpiece. Now, we've done comedies on this show before. We've done Big Fat Liar. We've done Meet Dave.
Bend It Like Beckham.
Bend It Like Beckham was a funny one.
Roller coaster ride.
Band Slam, as we can see right here.
Yeah.
And this one does it in a very different way. Like we said, we have a lot of really big actors in this film. We've got Harold Ramis, Jack Black, the greatest of them all, Michael Cera. And
greatest of them all.
And also, in the comedy, we look at a lot of themes from literature, mainly the Bible. We touch upon...
Old Testament.
And apparently there was going to be a Noah scene with some actor, but because Evan Almighty did bad, they cut him out or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't really know what was up with that. So, and it really makes us think a lot. Like, in the scene where they're in the... what was that holy place called where people die if they enter?
The holiest of holes.
The holiest of holes, I think that was what they called it, yeah. They had a lot of religious commentary right there about whether God's here, whether he's stepped out, what's the point if anything happens, if he doesn't exist, and it led to an argument between the two. So this whole film is really trying to make a lot of comments, but also trying to make a lot of comedic jokes, and I think that might be why it was unappreciated by audiences, because the people who wanted the comedy had to deal with all these other social satire elements, whereas the people who wanted a really religious experience found that the comedy detracted from a lot of it. But we watching it now, and this is not our first or second time watching it, it's at least our third, we can look on
Once,
it...
twice, 3 times a lady, yeah.
Yes. We can look on it with the knowledge that, yes, this movie has a purpose, and we can see what it is. Everything is zero. Everything has a point. And that is what makes it a great movie. You cannot appreciate it fully on your first or second viewing. If I have to give this movie a rating, I have to give it a shit and piss in the toilet.
Not on Michael Cera's face and in Jack Black's mouth.
I know that sounds like, like that's a disgusting rating. That's not a good thing.
It's disgusting.
But, no. But if you think about it,
explain yourself.
That is exactly where it has to be.
Yeah.
This movie is exactly what it needs to be.
Sure.
And that is my final thoughts.
I'm going to give a review now of what I had to gain from Year One. Year One, it is a slightly personal movie for me because it is one of those first films for me. I think we all have a film in our life that we really we didn't understand when we first watched it, or we still may not understand today. Why didn't it work? It had all the promise, all the potential. This was that first real film for me with like a full understanding of film and how it goes on and why I enjoy film. Well, I watched it the first time and I didn't understand, why don't I like this? Why don't I like this? What is it that isn't getting to me? And I did not realize until I was older that I just needed more time to mature into the comedy of this movie and into the themes. Now, we keep making the mistake of going Bible and all that, but this is Old Testament, and I think that is very, very good because we don't usually get a lot of Old Testament kind of set comedies, you know, where we usually get like comedies and satires of like Christian faith based, which is New Testament, but this is kind of riffing on, you know, Old Testament Jewish faith based kind of stuff going on.
Except ironically I mentioned Evan Almighty.
Yeah. But, you know, and all that kind of stuff where, you know, you have movies like Life of Brian and The Holy Grail and all these kind of stuff where it's like making fun of the history of the Bible and Christianity and all this, where this is one of these movies that goes, hey, you know, the Old Testament's pretty crazy itself, you know, and, you know, the faiths that follow that can be pretty crazy themselves, and circumcision and all this, it's all crazy, you know. Old Testament God is crazy God. Why is no one making comedies about this era of religion? And I really commend this film on that because we don't get this set very much, and I really do commend it. And I feel like Jack Black and Michael Cera, a great comedic duo. I really am upset that they have not worked together as a duo in more films. It's a beautiful pairing when you see two people that you wouldn't necessarily think would work together, like Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson in Zoolander. I didn't think they were going to work, but they work great. And then, you know, Michael Cera, Jack Black, and all these people that you just think, you know, I didn't think of pairing them together, but it doesn't seem like a bad idea, and it works. And I would really think that these guys need to make more and more stuff, pump out stuff together. If I had to give this a rating, you know, it's hard. You know, it's a hard thing to give a movie of this caliber a rating, but if I had to, I had to give it a nice big brain blood in the boner.
Nice.
Yeah, nice. Yeah.
It stimulates.
It's a stimulating and erotic piece.
I loved it. I really look forward to seeing where those two guys go with their careers, Jack Black and Michael Cera. I really think they're going to go. They've stumbled across some really fun stuff there, and they're going to go on to do some great things. Suffice to say, I think if you've summed it up, guys, I'm just going to give it 3 out of 5 bald eunuchs.
You summed it up, guys. Perfect. Nailed it. So other people had other thoughts and other people had other things to say that we may not have tread on, or they just have a better way of saying it. So I'm just going to dive in. This review is from 2009 and it's a 9-star review out of 10.
What?
Yeah. And this person's title of their review was exactly what it should have been, yet cruelly underrated.
Ooh.
Yeah. So this is what they have to say. When I first saw the in theater preview for this movie, I was extremely excited. I went home and got onto Facebook and became a fan of the movie, which provided me with updates containing every video pertaining to Year One that was out there. I saw all of these videos and laughed hysterically, but I began to get a feeling that the movie would consist of what was in the previews and be nothing more than around 15 minutes of funny, dragged out over 90 minutes of period of time. I was wrong. When the movie started, I began to become even more worried I would hate it because within the first 20 minutes of the movie, at least 3/4 of the things seen in the previews were already said. I figured it was going to drag on from there, but to my great relief, it did not at all. The entire hour and a half of the movie was constant laughing. The way The way Black and Cera got themselves in so much trouble and managed to get out of it every time was perfect. The ridiculous yet hilarious references to the Bible and how things that exist today were created were perfect. The movie was exactly what it was supposed to be, a laugh-out-loud comedy that was only meant to entertain. I am still baffled as to why people keep bashing this movie. Comments like, worst movie of the decade, anger me. What were people expecting with this movie? A heartwarming story with a compelling plot and serious action? Yeah, right? Why would you expect that? It is like everybody is sizing this movie up to expectations that it doesn't need to be sized up to. This movie was a great movie if all you want to do is go in and laugh. If you're looking for some deeper moral and other things that don't belong in a movie like Year One, you should go and see something else. 9 out of 10.
Did they go on to watch the film 2 or 3 times a day and then write a quiz about it?
I'm not saying that they did.
That is the logical thing to do.
This next one's an 8-star review. Also 2009. Every now and then I like to mention when the reviews come out because I think this is when it came out. So their perspective is fresh off it while ours is years later now.
Totally.
So it's very different. So 8 stars. Is this vast majority dead?
Excuse me?
Is this vast majority dead
Is
wrong?
the vast majority
Is the
dead?
vast majority dead wrong?
Okay.
We'll find out. Firstly, let me mention that this is my first IMDb post ever.
And laugh.
Oh, good. The review starts off with some history.
I love the history of the people. And I feel compelled to make this post based on many different things. I went into this movie with no prior knowledge other than a trailer of the movie where Michael Cera gets berries knocked out of his hands, etc.
One example, it's that. And
That's great. I want to go see this film. He gets berries knocked out of his hand. I have to see this film.
8 out of 10.
Berries!
Funny thing is, I don't even remember that. Do you guys?
It was the best bit of the film.
It was the first time we see him.
He gets berries knocked out of his hand.
He's a gatherer, he's getting berries.
Knocked out of his hand. Berries!
They made an account to mention this. They made an IMDb. Okay. Out of his hands, etc. This scene made me laugh, and I thought that Jack Black and Cera could be a good pairing for comedy. I did not know that the movie was directed by Harold Ramis, nor that the script was written by Ramis as well as the guys from The Office, all 3 of whom are comedy geniuses. Liam's just like, come on, guys. Yeah. I'm a comedy genius. Nor did I know that the movie had been panned by Roger Ebert. Ooh. Roger Ebert's panned many of the movies on this show, guys.
Yeah, what does he know?
I'm not a fan. Panned by Roger Ebert, the only movie critic whom I actually respect, and that we have similar tastes in movies. If I had read the Ebert review, 1 star might I add, I probably wouldn't have gone to see the movie, but nonetheless, I did. There are two kinds of comedy. Comedy with a moral to the story, and mindless comedy for the sole purpose of making people laugh. This is the latter, but it is done to perfection. I'm not going to talk about the movie itself, other than to say that the scenes with Oliver Platt and Cera had me laughing as hard as the first half hour of Borat. And then in brackets, in brackets, i.e. I could barely breathe in that movie, end brackets. I'm not claiming that this movie is a classic. In fact, I'll admit there was no real point to the movie, and the philosophical bits feel pretty flat. But all in all, there were many scenes in this movie where Ramis's genius is apparent. I went to the movie to get some laughs, and I definitely got my money's worth. For a quick example of some other comedies which had me leaving a large amount of pee for the theatre personnel to mop up later.
Oh. Jesus.
Yeah, you heard that. This other examples of his...
I can't control my bladder!
...was A Fish Called Wanda, The Holy Grail, Office Space, Borat, Austin Powers, and Happy Gilmore.
Yeah, great, good company.
I love that. And then okay, I didn't see most of these in the theater, but you get the point anyway. They just had to clarify that. They're like, yeah, okay, look, I didn't see them.
Why go to the theater when I can piss myself at home?
I can't really say why so many people are panning Year One. My only thought is that they really just don't get the humor. Obviously, there is plentiful supply of people on IMDb that will not like this notion since they couldn't possibly be wrong about anything. But in my opinion, they are mistaken when it comes to this movie. I have a feeling that people's opinions of this movie will change in time. He was right, guys. Will change in time. I have a feeling that people's opinions of this movie will change in time. It is possible that a pointless caveman comedy could be before its time. I hope this post will get a few more people to watch this movie with an open mind. I don't want to shit on the other critics, but I pee in my seat when I see a movie, and this movie's gonna make you pee hard.
I wonder if the usher's like, oh god damn it, all these people peeing when they watch Year One.
The next one is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 star review. Oh, come on. This is Mel Brooks inspired. 2009 also. This is nowhere near as bad as some are making out. It has touches of Python and a lot of Mel Brooks. It is pretty lazy in places with too much ad-libbing. At least I hope it was ad-libbing. But this is pretty good entertainment. It's not really about cavemen. It's about the Old Testament set mainly in Sodom. And it is kind of like Life of Brian, though clearly not in the same class. One can understand why marketers don't want problems with an upset congregation, but at the end of the day, this works pretty well as both broad comedy and a gentle satire. Considering that I was expecting a total donkey with a side order of turkey, this was pretty... with a side order of turkey, this was pretty much a fun film, and nowhere near as bad as I heard. Can be watched without loss of brain cells. 6 stars. I love can be watched.
That's a great drive-through.
So he was expecting a donkey with a side of turkey, and he got that and a drink.
Great. So this one is a smart, hilarious comedy. 8 stars. I found this movie on the bottom rack of the corner shelf at Blockbuster, which didn't bode well.
I found it at the top of the cash converter.
So that bodes well. That didn't bode well, but I'm glad I took a chance. If you like Arrested Development or Mr. Show, you'll love this movie. The movie is a satire of the Old Testament. It presents the biblical creation story in the context of a tribe of Stone Age humans with contemporary mindsets. The results are hilarious. It's not as good as Monty Python's Life of Brian, but it's in the same ballpark. The only area where the film suffers is in what seems like an attempt to cater to a younger audience with toilet humor. However, as you cringe watching the toilet humor scenes, you get sideswiped by a few clever jokes that are timed just right. There are a few jokes in the movie that are delivered so perfectly with such great nuance and skill that just thinking about them still makes me laugh. My favorite scene is...
He knocked the berries! He knocked the berries!
Not the berries. My favorite scene is where the priest is reading the omens from the sheep's entrails that he just poured onto the table. To me, I see a smiley face, and that makes me happy. And then this person puts a winky face after that. Like, that was a good line, winky face. This movie is one of the few that I'm willing to buy. like
one of
$2.
One of the few.
Last one, guys. Now, Lliam, the best part of these reviews for me are hearing the personal lives of the people who write them. You know, every now and then we get people who are like, my son loved this movie and he's autistic. You know, you get something like that. This one's not...
It should be funny, but it is.
This one's not quite like that, but you get a little context. Yeah. This is hilarious. 8 stars. My husband and I just got back from watching this movie, and I thought it was hilarious.
Is this 2009 as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought it was... No, they watched it in 2016, just came back home from the cinema. No.
Okay.
And I thought it was hilarious. I like movies that don't take themselves too seriously, and this is definitely a movie like that. It looked like everyone had fun making a silly film, and I know everyone in the theater was laughing throughout. There are parts that try to drag a joke out for a little too long, but overall, I thought the humor was simple, effective, and very well executed. Michael Cera was definitely the shining star in this movie. He delivers awkward comedy so well and just so believable and likable. He is a fantastic actor. 8 out of 10. Nice. Like, they're just like, my husband and I had a fun time with this movie. Did we all have a fun time with this movie? Is Michael Cera a shining star? Still shining today? Shine on, you crazy diamond, Sarah? They like to call him down at the bar?
Yeah, he could use a bit of like a rub and scrub, but yeah, I reckon he's still a star.
A rub and scrub.
Yeah, like to wipe it a bit.
Jeez. So, that was Year One, guys. We all feel emotional about it. The berries scene is getting us all laughing again.
Let's
berries.
watch the movie again just for the berries.
Alright, guys, go back to the start of this commentary and listen to the commentary on the berries scene when it happened. We may or may not have commented on it, but who knows? It was so good that Liam's laughing about it right now.
I think it was around the time we were talking about what we remembered and like
how could we forget the berries scene?
Clearly.
It's so memorable.
That's
it
right.
was really nuanced performance from the berries.
He actually did have some funny lines there. He was like, "Oh, well, now we don't get to eat because you dropped the berries and stuff like that."
No.
Good times.
Good times were had. You guys, anything you want to say before we finish up about Year One? Any kind of deep philosophical anything that you want to mention?
I don't know if I have anything more after my review.
Yeah, his review really pooped him out, Liam. What about you? Anything you want to leave us off with your ideas of this film?
I just think that if this film is your entree, is your to the oeuvre of Harold Ramis, then seek out the back catalogue. Go backwards.
Go back.
Work your way back to Year One of his comedy history, and see where it all started.
Well, I think
I think you'll find a theme.
Yeah, you'll find a theme of greatness throughout.
Yeah.
Although I think that's also the only choice because apparently he didn't make anything after this.
Yep, that's right.
And then he passed
He
on.
said, I've made the greatest... Okay, this is one of the greatest films we've ever done, and it's one of the greatest. We didn't talk about it too much and how great it was, but we did mention it. But, hey, this movie is so great that Harold Ramis just called it a day. He just went, you know what? Everyone wants another Ghostbusters? Nah, Year One, retire, die. You know, that's how a real legend does it. That's how a real legend does it. I mean, I don't know what other actors in this
Forget
movie...
Groundhog Day. Forget
Screw it.
Ghostbusters. This is
Screw it. This is my calling card. Year One with Jack Black and Michael Cera and Oliver Platt and Stu the meat guy and on it goes. This movie brings a tear to my eye that there was no comedy sequel to it and that this did not get the love that it needed.
Maybe after the Ghostbusters remake, they'll make this.
They'll make an all-female version of it. Yeah.
Bring out Danny McBride. In a dress.
Yeah, and he plays like the princess though. Like...
No, an all-female version of this is Clan of the Cave Bear, isn't it? And that's already there.
Oh yeah, I've already got
It's
that.
already done.
It's already done. What's Clan of the Cave Bear? That's this. You guys have been fantastic, wonderful, amazing listening people, as always. Liam, you've been a fantastic, wonderful, amazing guest.
I just want to say thank you very much to Bartek Cappuccino and Ryan Sliwinski for having me on. It's great, and all the best to you guys. I think that when they remake this podcast down the track, you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Lliam. Amor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. I just want to thank myself. I did a good job today.
Yeah.
I even brought snacks. Bartek, as always, you've been a good host.
Yeah, thanks.
Been all right. You brought that trivia.
By the way, can I just say that, Ryan, your suit looks amazing. And Bartek, the fact that you sat here the whole time naked is really, really off-putting.
Not the first time he's done this on the show. Until next time, guys, remember to be kind to each other, and of course, don't forget the berries scene, because who could forget that?
That takes berries!
Ryan, you okay?
Yeah, I nearly died from the laughter of that berries scene. I can't believe I forgot this berries scene. Like, you guys were like, oh, you obviously, Ryan. There was that classic berries scene that we all forgot.
I think we need to wrap up the episode.
I'm already checked out.